Welcome to the St. Tammany Parish Zoning Commission meeting of June the 4th. Pardon? It's on. What's not on?
Carlin, it says mic on, but it's not on.
Yeah,
Yeah, it is.
Okay. We got it straight. Thank y'all for coming, and will the clerk please call the roll?
Martha Casabon. Pug Lauren. Todd Richard. Bernie Willie. Barry Baggert, excuse me. Patrick Fitzmaurice. Dave Doherty.
Here.
Kirk Drum. Ron Randolph. Carolyn Parker. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please silence all phones and electronic devices. If you disagree with any decisions this commission makes, you have the right to appeal to the council. The appeal cards are over on the podium to the right, and you're welcome to get one of the appeal cards, fill it out, and get it into staff. Speaker cards are over there also. Public speaking, 10 minutes each side, 5 minutes for rebuttal, and after your case is heard, you can either stay or you can exit the building, but don't go out in the foyer out there because the sound comes back in. Please stand for the invocation.
Hearts as we recognize all the blessings you bestowed in our lives throughout this day. You've watched over and protected us. You kept us safe from all hurt, harm, and danger. Lord, we thank you for blessing our families and our homes. We thank you for this, our parish and our government and all the employees that represent and serve our communities. Lord, we ask a special blessing upon our commissioners. Allow us to make decisions that's in the best interest of all. And Heavenly Father, we ask a special blessing upon those victims in Virginia Beach and their families, Heavenly Father. And all these blessings we ask in your name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we have to hopefully elect a vice chair tonight, and I need a motion to open the agenda for that. Mr. Randolph.
I make a motion that we open the agenda for vice president.
For the purpose of selecting a vice chairman. Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Baggert. Need to have a vote? Please vote.
We have a vote. Yeah.
The vote passed. We have the floor open now for nominations for vice chair. Do I hear any nominations for vice chair? Mr. Baggett.
I got to speak, okay. I don't have a.
Microphone. All right, I'd like to nominate Mr. Richard, please.
Okay, we have a motion from Mr. Richard. Ms. Casabon? You'll second that, okay? Are there any other nominations? We'll close the nominations, and Mr. Richard, you're elected. Yeah, let's go ahead and vote. That way we've got it all right.
It is passed. It's passed.
Okay. Motion passes. And since you were the parliamentarian, I'm going to appoint Mr. Lauren as the parliamentarian. You accept, Pug?
Parliamentarian, not meaning that's the deal. You don't want to appoint me.
Do you accept the parliamentarian post? Okay, thank you. All right. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the May 7th, 2019 minutes. Hopefully y'all have had an opportunity to review, and if there are any corrections, please speak up. If not, Mr. Lowen. You should be on.
We have one correction.
Okay.
It looks like in regards to PR 1712-002, we have Ms. Deborah Abear speaking in opposition to the request. It was actually Ms. Nancy Wagner.
Okay. Any other corrections? All right.
I make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Okay, do we have a second? I'll second the motion. Second by Mr. Richard. Please vote. Motion carries. Thank you. All right. We have an item towards the end of the agenda that I'm going to move up, and it is on item 10, 2019-1451-ZC. This is on the short-term rentals and ordinance to amend and reenact the St. Tammany Parish Code of Ordinances, Chapter 22, licenses, and Chapter 130, Unified Development Code, to provide definitions and regulations regarding short-term rentals, to add short-term rentals as permitted use in certain commercial and mixed-use zoning districts within the unincorporated St. Tammany Parish, and to provide for penalties and fines for violations. And we need a motion. We need-
To move it up.
Yeah, legal's gonna make a comment on this.
Yeah, we don't have staff comment on this one, but just to make sure you're familiar with it, this is an ordinance regarding short-term rentals. As written, it regulates short-term rentals as commercial and restricts them to commercial districts with some exceptions, including for legal nonconforming use and for those who have a homestead exemption and will be on the property while the rental is happening. If y'all have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. The ordinance that was in our packets initially and was on the website has been changed, and a number of items have been added. So tonight, what I'd like to do is go through and read the changes, have a vote on, a motion and a vote on each one of them. And then after we do that, then we'll open the floor for 30 minutes, 5 minutes per person, for any comments that the public would like. Oh, okay. All right. Pardon? No. All right. And the commission got these about a week, 10 days ago, so there hasn't really been time to get this on the website and get it out to y'all. The first one is the first paragraph, whereas short-term rental is commonly defined as a dwelling unit rented for a period of less than 30 days for lodging and boarding of transient guests. All right, we need a motion and a second. Mr. Lawrence,
I make a motion to approve that.
okay, we need a second. Ms. Casabon,
Is this an amendment?
pardon?
Is this an amendment?
I don't know what
Right, right. Okay. We have a motion and a second. We need to vote. Please vote. Do what now?
You should not vote on any amendment until you hear public comments.
Okay, all right. Do we back up from there?
We need to hear public comment before you all vote, so if the chairman wants to read all of the proposed changes, we can hear the public comment, and then you can vote on all the changes in globo if you'd like, or individually at the end of the at the end of the public comment period.
Okay. Yeah, we'll read them one at a time, and I thought we were gonna take an individual vote.
You should do the vote at the end.
Okay, all right, we'll do the vote at the end then. Okay, the next one is whereas nothing in the ordinance shall be construed to ratify any attempts to circumvent parish ordinances through the use of short-term rental contracts or otherwise violate any St. Tammany Parish government ordinances or regulations, including but not limited to use of short-term rental contract to accept payment for other commercial uses outside lodging, or which are not otherwise permitted, and whereas nothing in the ordinance shall have any effect on any private restrictive covenants between private parties, including not limited to private deed restrictions or restrictive covenants enforced by homeowners association, nor shall it ratify past, current, or future violations of private deed restrictions or restrictive covenants. And then it goes on to what was in the original ordinance. And then the next one is an addition to section 22.587. Short-term rental means and includes any established or person engaged in the business of furnishing sleeping rooms, cottages, cabins, or other similar lodging to transit guests in residential locations, including but not limited to a house, apartment, condominium, camp, cabin, or other building structure used as a residence. The next one is an amendment under definitions in section 130.130-5, short-term rental. Short-term rental means and includes any establishment or person engaged in the business of furnishing sleeping rooms, cottages, cabins, or other similar lodging to transit guests in residential locations, including but not limited to a house, apartment, condominium, camp, cabin, or other building structure as a residence. And then under amended Article 3, Chapter 130, Item A, been added are proof of the payment of hotel motel tax on the past rentals in St. Tammany Parish Sheriff's Office on or before December 31st, 2018, the effective date of the ordinance. You need to read.
You can just say that we added it to all of the.
Okay, the short-term rental comment has been added, amended into Estate District E1, E2, E3, and E4, and then amended into suburban districts A1A, A2D, A3D, A4D, 34AD.
He has a comment in between, if you may.
When we get to the end, then we'll have to. And A5D, A6D, A7D, and A8D. And then adding 15 short-term rentals. And then amend in section 130, 2213, item 5, adding other than an estate district, a rural overlay, or those operating under the provisions of 130-164. And then adding item 6, auctions, wedding, commercial functions, and any other similar events which have the potential to cause traffic, parking, noise, or other problems in the neighborhood are prohibited from occurring at the short-term rental as a component of short-term rental activities. And then adding item C, nothing in this section is intended to apply to or prohibit the lease, rental, occupancy, or use of a property that is under pending contract for sale where the leasee and the leaseor parties to the pending sale of said property. And the effective date will be 6 months after adoption. All right, that's all of the amendments. That's a lot. And I know that it's, difficult to get it all written down and everything. So right now, I'm gonna open the floor to the public for 30 minutes for public comment. Each person will have no more than 5 minutes. Is there anyone in the public that would like to comment on these? Yes, sir. Come forward and state your name and address.
I'm Tom Collins. I reside at 34143 Lowry Lane, new address for an old house. I'd like to approach this issue from several different angles because I'm involved in it from several different angles. I've traveled using exclusively Airbnb for several years now because I prefer to stay in a private environment and enjoy the beauty of the particular area I'm in. My guests, I rent also, my guests come to me for the same reasons, and they spend their money in St. Tammany Parish. I'm urging us not to throw out the baby with the bathwater. I do have another angle I would like to give you, though. The grandfathering clause that I've seen in the ordinance, I don't know if it's still in there, but it's designed, obviously, to let the bad actors stay in business. I am quite willing to give up my short-term rental business if we can get rid of the bad actors. I would also be grandfathered. I'll rent my house out. And by the way, I do not have a homestead exemption on the house that I rent out, but I can throw rocks at that house for mine. And I have kicked out those renters who violate my rules, several of which I have bedding for 9 people. I will only rent to 4. Why? I don't want parties. I don't allow events. I don't allow weddings. And if someone's going to have visitors while they're staying at my place, they need my permission on that particular day to have visitors. I'm renting to them, not to a party. I think there are other ways to regulate this besides throwing everybody that's in a residential district under the bus, but I'll be the first to go. I'll happily go because I'm also a concerned citizen of St. Tammany. I have been disturbed by rentals in my area who have no regards for their neighbors, okay? We need to do something about that. The noise ordinance cannot do it. Can't count on that because, well, for one thing, the sheriff's office doesn't know we have a noise ordinance. I've never had any luck with that. But there's got to be a way to regulate this that can allow the good actors to stay in and get rid of the bad actors. I have not had one single complaint in the several years that I've been doing this, but I'll be happy to go if that's what it's going to take to make our parish citizens happy and get rid of the nuisance short-term rentals. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Yes, sir. Come on up.
Gonna reset the clock, okay. Hi, I'm E.J. Lemieux. I live at 132 Rue de la Paix in Slidell. I'm a lifelong resident of St. Tammany Parish, except for college and military service. I've spent my whole life here. And I even captured a girl in Lafayette and brought her back here. The reason I've stayed has been the quality of life. And I guess I'm a little unusual in that I was in the rental business for 25 years. I rented residential, I rented commercial, always about a month. And a short-term rental to me was for a year. Certainly no less than that. And, you know, the big problem that I have with short-term rentals is that it completely changes the environment of the neighborhood. I don't have one, I have two homes. One of them I could certainly short-term rent. Now, the money I made from it wouldn't pay for the divorce, so I'm certainly not going in that direction. But there are short-term rentals that I'm familiar with, probably 5 or 6. And the people have had just tremendous problems with 8, 10, 12 guests. You know, if you look at the listings on the internet, I mean, with Airbnb, with, you know, VRBO and et cetera, you know, it says a maximum of 8 guests. Well, people come in and maybe they have 8, and then friends come over, and before you know it, you've got 10, 12, 14 people, parking all over. It really can make your life miserable. I'm not saying they're all like that, but I'm saying that they can be like that. And I've been coming to all these meetings because I don't want one next to me. I mean, I have seen what they have done, you know, in other areas. I mean, as soon as a house goes up for sale, people kind of hold their breath now. I mean, is this going to become a short-term rental? And if the house sits on the market for a while, like a lot of houses have lately, I mean, I don't know how many there are on the market, 1,700 in St. Tammany Parish. You wonder, you know, gee, are they going to put furniture in here and short-term rent? Because if they do, life is going to change for you, I guarantee you. 3 big things happen. Number one, your quality of life declines. And, of course, my wife, the first thing she says is, I'm not walking out in the morning. You know, if there are people there next door, I don't know strangers every weekend. So that affects my life, of course. The second problem is neighborhood watch kind of goes out the window. So you've got strangers in a neighborhood, and, you know, presumably they're good people. They drive around. You know, the cars you thought you recognized, all of a sudden you don't recognize them anymore. So that kind of becomes a problem. And the third thing has just kind of recently been driven home to me is that your property value drops because nobody wants to buy next to a short-term rental. I tell you, I don't. And there are two people that I know personally who've had sales fall through because the home next to them started short-term renting. The buyer backed out of the sale. So my reason for coming here is to say I support this ordinance. I'm really happy the parish is doing this. I know surrounding areas are doing it, and I think if we don't do something, it's just going to make our problem even worse because perhaps those short-term investors, you know, will start coming to St. Tammany Parish. So look, I was in the business for 25 years. I rented by the month. I actually made money at it. You know, you have to stay on top of it. The whole thing is you can make more money renting by the day. There's no question about that. If you rent a dozer by the day, you're going to get more money for it. The problem is it makes the neighborhood miserable. All the people around you are sorry that they moved there. So again, thank you for your support, and I hope you support this ordinance. It is really needed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak? Mr. Broom?
Thank you. My name is Robert Broom, and I live at 109 Rue de Lorraine, and I'm speaking in favor of this ordinance for the same reasons that EJ spoke of. This ordinance is intended to protect the quality of life in St. Tammany Parish and to maintain the environment that we all moved here for and that we're all here staying here for. And I ask this group and everyone in the parish to support reasonable regulations to protect the quality of life in St. Tammany Parish by regulating the short-term rentals and protecting us from the problems that they bring to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Broom. There was another gentleman that raised his hand. Come on up and state your name and address, please.
My name's Donald Ducote. I live at 49 North Treasure Isle, Slidell, Louisiana. 12 years ago, I bought a home here, and I was told it's residential. And the homes where I'm at are very expensive homes. 2 years ago, they started renting a house out down the street from me. Every weekend, they got somebody different in there. Different people, different cars. One week, about 6 months ago, they had 32 people at this house on a Friday evening, 13 automobiles, and 2 trucks with boats. And they partied from Friday night to Sunday night. Nobody did nothing about it. And I started talking to neighbors, and they said, well, they're not supposed to do that. The covenant says you cannot do that. They doing it anyway. And nobody wants to do nothing about it. And we found out you guys are trying to enforce that. So please enforce it, because this is ridiculous. I got a lot of money invested in my home, and my neighbors do too. And we did not do this to have people renting. You know, I got houses I could rent and make a bunch of money, but I don't do it because it's not fair to your neighbor. You know, if you want to do this, go do it in commercial areas. Don't do it in a residential area where there's people and kids, you know, it's just not right. Anyway, I'm definitely for you guys, so I hope it passes. Thank you.
Thank you. There was another gentleman. There you go. Good evening.
Good evening, Commission members. My name is Ross Lagarde. My address is 2250 Gauls Boulevard East, Slidell, Louisiana. First, thank y'all for doing this. Thank you for listening to me. I've been before you several times already, and I know for some of you it may be a broken record, but I'm here again on the same issue. I represent Bayou Liberty Association, which is an association on Bayou Liberty of homeowners along that bayou. For 2 years, I have been trying to enforce a deed restriction on a home over there that's being used as a bed and breakfast. Most recently, we were before you because they were trying to rezone that piece of property so that they could use it as a commercial bed and breakfast. And the reason I'm speaking on this ordinance tonight is because as drafted, the ordinance will basically, in my opinion, exempt that bed and breakfast from these regulations and will allow it to continue to occur. I mailed each of you a letter, and attached to it was the rental agreement currently being used, which basically allows this facility to be rented out for $7,500 per weekend and basically get around all the zoning laws. I'm saying all of them. I'm not perfect, but I mean, as I read this ordinance, I believe there's an exemption in there. The exemption is dealing with somebody else referred to as the grandfather clause. Any facility that's non-conforming that has been paying the hotel and motel tax to the sheriff's office of St. Tammany Parish is exempt. I contacted the sheriff's office to try to find out how many of those properties may exist, who's paying it. Obviously, the hotels and motels are paying it, but I'm trying to find out who else is paying it. Because basically, there's an exemption in this ordinance. Nobody knows who's being exempted. At least I can't find out. And that's why I said earlier, I'm going to ask you to postpone this until we can figure out some information. Because, again, there's an exemption, as I read it, that will exempt forever all of the properties that have been paying this hotel and motel tax, but we don't know how many of those are or are there. And we need to know that, and we should know which properties they are, and I think the public should be able to see which properties those are before y'all vote on it. And I think that's the biggest point. And again, I know I've got a few minutes, please indulge me. I've been before 2 additional judges since I appeared before you last time. One of them, well, I was only before one in court. We've been trying to enforce this deed restriction, and the judge in my particular case basically said that this is up to the St. Tammany Parish Council, and I know that it has to come to y'all first because y'all are the Planning and Zoning Commission, but they said this is a legislative issue. The judge wants to see what comes out of this body and ultimately the Parish Council before they rule in my case. So there's no final ruling yet. They're just looking at the council to see what happens. The second case was filed by St. Tammany Parish government itself to enforce the administrative permit issued to the particular bed and breakfast. The judge in that case, his order, and I'm going to read it for you because he was more specific. Now, this is St. Tammany Parish government trying to enforce its own administrative permits. And the judge's order specifically said, and I'm quoting, "The short-term rental method by which these events are purportedly being held on the defendant's property are an obvious exploitation of a loophole around the parish zoning ordinances. It is a loophole that the legislative body of St. Tammany Parish currently allows." So now we have the parish government unable to enforce its administrative permits, at least temporarily, and that case is not over with yet. It needs to go further, and I know that the attorneys plan to bring it further to enforce that. Whenever that happens, it will. But in the interim, we're still dealing with a facility that was granted an RO overlay by this commission. It was approved based upon a deed restriction that also accompanied that agreement by all parties to allow this commercial zoning. And now we're being presented with a grandfather clause that will allow it to continue to occur despite everything that happened in the past. I know that I have 30 seconds left. I need to object to the amendments read only because I haven't seen them. I'm not sure if they're red lines or if they were the ones that I received a few days ago. If they're new amendments that no one in the public has seen, I think we have a right to see them at least before we come before you on a vote. And I will also suggest that a possible amendment would be, if it does go forward, make the property comply with all deed restrictions. So if this is Beauchene or Chafuncta or Eden Isles and Slidell, if there's a deed restriction in that subdivision that says you can't have a short-term rental, and that means the homeowners in that association need to get together and do something, that's fine, but don't let them get around every private restriction in this parish. Thank you. I used all my time.
Thank you, Mr. LaCard. One thing that I failed to say at the beginning, it is the commission's intent, because of these various amendments and everything, to postpone this till next month, to give the public time to look these up on the website or get a copy of it and know what these amendments are. I mean, just reading them, there was a lot there to try and grasp, but you should, get a copy of them and really go through the whole ordinance. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Seeing none, I'm going to bring it back to the commission. Mr. Randolph.
Sure, well, two things. Make sure on the very first page, on the fourth whereas, that we read that, which is in green, as a part of the amendment as well. I think we read that? Okay, all right. Well, with that being said, and so many changes and a lot of concerns and some questions on my end, the commission end, I'm pretty sure as the public as well, I move that we postpone this until next month's meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Randolph and Mr. Lawrence.
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Lawrence. Mr. Baird.
I wasn't gonna second it, so.
Mr. Richard.
We don't have that ability anymore. Oh, there we go. There were a lot of amendments. Yes, it is. There were a lot of amendments that obviously the public, and Mr. Lagarde particularly, some of those questions you have are in the amendments that are in front of us. But you haven't had a chance to see it, nor has the rest of the public. So that's the reason why we're going to postpone this, or at least we'll go to vote. But prior to that, we didn't actually take a vote on the amendments that you read in, did we not?
Not yet.
Okay, do we need to do that before we postpone?
That's really up to y'all. If
Okay.
you can vote on the amendments next month, if you want them to be advertised. Helen, do you need them to vote on the amendments to be advertised? I can just get Ronnie Simpson to put these on the website where the previous version's been so that the public has the opportunity to view it. But it's really up to you if you want to make these amendments right now, or if you want to postpone and not address the amendments
It's
until
not
next
necessary
month.
as long as the public sees what we've already read.
Yeah, I can
That's
make
fine.
sure that
Okay.
it's available on the website.
And it will be added to our packet next month.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to postpone. Any further discussion? Please vote.
The motion to postpone has passed.
Thank you. We are going to establish a work group, and the last work group we had was working on a venue ordinance, and myself, Mr. Lauren, Mr. Richard were part of that. And what we'd like to do is establish a work group, and I need one more volunteer if somebody would like to participate, to have some discussion. And in the public, if you have any comments, I'd like for you to put it in writing and mail it to St. Tammany Parish Government at Post Office Box 628 in Covington, and the zip code is 71433. 70434.
Mr. Chairman?
To attention, Carlin Riles. Yes, sir. You don't,
I just wanted to make sure that it would be placed to someone's attention so it doesn't get lost. Thank you.
thank you. All right. Pardon?
Did you want to take a break?
You need a nomination of an additional member to your group?
Yes. Did anyone, any of the commissioners want to participate in the work group? Not yet. Okay. All right, Mr. Randolph. All right. Do we have a date, Helen?
A date?
Yeah.
We can have a date. You want to meet here this month, or?
Yeah. Probably about 2, maybe 3 weeks.
The 18th is the third Tuesday of the month. The 18th?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
June 18th?
June 18th? Okay. All right, so our first get-together will be the 18th, and it will be here in the council's conference room. Is that all right?
This is a work group just for the commissioners, or it's open to the public
This is for the commissioners
Okay.
that are on the work group. And there'll be, it'll be just suggestions that come out of this. There will be no vote taken. So, like I said, it's just for suggestions. 6/18.
Can you turn the volume up?
Okay, mine's on. Okay. All right, we got the volume up, so hopefully you can hear that. All right, we're gonna get back to the rest of the agenda. Pardon? Yeah. All right, the first, Pardon? right. Helen, do you have any postponements on the agenda?
No, sir.
Okay. There was one case that was withdrawn, but it was noted. It's 2019-14-53 ZC, item 12 was withdrawn. Yeah. All right, the first item on the agenda, item 1, is 2019-1373-ZC. Existing zoning's A1, proposed zoning is A2, and MHO, manufactured housing overlay, 8 acres. The petitioner's Taylor Miguez, owner is August Joseph and Tanya D. Canizaro, parcel located on the east side of Press Sharp Road, north of Otis Sharp Road, Ward 2, District 6. Staff?
The 2025 Future Land Use Plan calls for the area to be developed as a planned district with residential uses, including conservation areas. Staff does not have any objection to the request for a manufactured housing overlay designation. However, staff does not see any compelling reason to recommend approval of the requested A2 suburban district, considering that the surrounding area is zoned A1 suburban district. Staff recommends that the request for a MHO manufactured housing overlay designation be approved and the request for an A2 suburban district designation be denied.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am. Step up to the mic and need your name and address.
Hi, I'm Taylor Miguez, and it's 84024 Press Sharp.
Okay,
And I'm Tanya Catanzaro, same address.
okay,
We previously came, well, I did, to request the manufacturer overlay to be approved. And I think it was maybe you, Mr. Doherty, that noticed that we had a dwelling on the property already. And then that brought up the A2 dwelling, that it needed to be rezoned before we actually get approved for the manufacturer overlay. So we're back for that reason. Instead of just having one dwelling on 8 acres, we'd like to have it approved for a second dwelling, so my children, this is my daughter-in-law, can put a home eventually on the property. It was also stated, which I'm a little confused about when I was here previously, that each dwelling had to have 5 acres of property in order to be approved for a second dwelling. And I don't understand that when we live out in a rural area and we're off the road, no one sees us, and you have subdivisions that houses are 15 feet apart. That why does it have to be 5 acre lots
okay.
for an A2
I'm
to
gonna
be
let
approved?
staff answer that question. It has to do with the zoning, I'm not, okay?
After the comprehensive rezoning, created a lot of changes in the parish, and many parcels of land in the northern part of the parish were changed. The zoning was changed to A1 suburban with a minimum lot size of 5 acres. The zoning map was approved by the council, and that is the reason why at this time, that particular parcel is zoned A1 with a minimum lot size of 5 acres. Here, we have a petition, a request to rezone to A2 suburban, And if it is approved by the zoning commission and approved by the council, then it will allow more than one residence on that property.
But it'll be, what, 3 acres, an A2?
A2 is 1 acre minimum.
1 acre? Okay, thank you. That's the reason it had to be 5 acres is because of the A1 zoning, and you're asking for A2 now, which will allow you to put 2 on there. Okay, thank you. Let me see if there's anybody else that wishes to speak in favor. Is there anyone wish to speak against? I want to close the floor to the public and bring it back to the commission. Mr. Baggert. That was from a long time ago, huh? Okay. Mr. Randolph.
Yes, your name again, please?
Tanya Catanzaro.
Ms. Catanzaro, the staff is suggesting that we deny the request for the A2 suburban district. Explain to me, what are you trying to do with your 8 acres?
So we're trying to clear 1 acre to put a house for me and my husband and our 2 kids, because we have an autistic son, another son on the way, and we want to, she retired to help take care of him. So we want to kind of keep everybody together. So our property, you can't even see it from the road. You have like, how far is our driveway off the road?
We're probably so far that we can't even get good internet
We have 8
service.
acres, but we have 3 acres cut out of the woods, so you can't see anything. That's why we're kind of confused as to why it's so difficult to.
I have a shared
Get everything.
road. When you turn off a Press Sharp Road, it's a shared road that actually leads to the property. And I veer off to the right, and if you keep going, there's another dwelling further back to the left. So I'm behind a lot. I'm not sure if they're 4 acres or more, but I'm behind a home that is off of
Okay.
Press Sharp that you can see.
And that's good enough. I just wanted to make sure you guys are not trying to create a mobile home
Oh, no.
park
Oh, no.
district.
No, and originally, when my husband and I bought the property, the deed suggested, or we had to go modular. We could not go manufactured at that time. And we didn't even think about, hey, can we get this changed? We went ahead and bought the modular and put it there.
Okay.
But that's the reason. They moved from Lake Charles, and we'd like to have them to get their own place. And to be close together with family would be really nice.
I'd like to make a motion that we allow the A2 suburban district with the MHO overlay.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Randolph to accept the A2 and the MHO. Ms. Casabon.
Yes, some of our councilmen, we were questioning why they could not do just the 1 acre that they want the A2.
They could, however, they would have to provide us with a legal description of that particular acre.
Have y'all thought about that?
Well, so then we would have surveying to
Do you have to
play.
end up doing?
Yeah,
I do know this
it's just-
particular area. This area I was kind of born and raised in, and this is off of Highway 40, going like to Fifth Ward, very, very rural. And as in my area, when we talked about downzoning, and then when it was for families, and obviously this is the second time she's been up here, it is for her son and her daughter-in-law. I'll second Mr. Randall's motion to approve the A2 zoning and the manufactured overlay.
Thank you, Ms. Casabon. Mr. Willie.
Yeah, I would still like to consider maybe just doing the 1 acre, because you would still have to have a survey done to give your daughter an acre anyway. And, you open up possibility of putting 8 houses on that 8 acres when you rezone the whole property A2. But that's a possibility. You may not be the owner 20 years from now, but somebody may be.
That property is gonna stay in the family. I already told my son it's going to him.
I've
And
heard
we're
that
not
before.
going
I've heard
anywhere.
that before.
Well,
but-
we're not going
No.
anywhere. He works for
Yeah.
the sheriff's department, so we're here, and that's.
Well,
the
also,
reason
that
we're
property
doing this.
is not flat. It just dips and dives down into the rest of the acreage, is why we don't even open it up or clear it. And actually, for us to get our modular on there, we had to have someone come in because the plateau that they had was so small, we had to actually grate the property and pull it out to make an area to put the modular. So I have what I call my blueberry hill, because I have blueberry trees up there, that is like 4 feet at least to the bottom of, to where we had to make the plateau. So it's really takes a lot to do what you're saying, to put 8 dwellings on there,
And
because
another-
it's just so low.
Another reason why I would like to consider this is because you setting a precedence in the area. You know, all that area, and there's A1, minimum 5 acres. You put that A2 in place, and, you know, you got neighbors that may want to go A2, and
So
it's
all the residences on Press Sharp Road are on 5-acre lots?
they are zoned A1 and A1. Yeah, right, 5-acre minimum lots.
There's one
Now,
further
some of them
down
may
the road
not,
that's 3
some of them may
acres.
have only 3 acre, but it's still zoned A1.
Okay. And I don't know what the acreage is on one of my neighbors, but when I come up my shared road to the left of me, there are 2 dwellings that face each other. But I don't know if it's a 10-acre lot that they have or how long it's been there, but the second dwelling, I think, was built since we were there since 2009.
Okay, well, I'm just trying to preserve the
Yeah,
A1
I understand,
nature
I
of the
understand, but like I
community,
said,
so
the land, you would have to put so
I
much
understand
fill
that.
in there.
I understand that. but I'm more concerned about the zoning, not the
Yeah,
shape of the
no, I
land.
understand, I
Okay,
understand.
thank you.
But that's not our intentions.
Thank you, Mr. Willie. Mr. Richard.
We like the privacy.
Just to reiterate, we're trying to help you. We
Yeah.
want you, we think what you're trying to do is fine. What we're trying to do is make sure we put the right peg in the right hole and so forth. And his concern is that if we zone it A2, technically, somebody in the future could put a lot more houses on it than it's designed. That's why either way, when you put a second residence out there, bigger than 1,000 square feet, you're gonna have to subdivide it anyway. You're gonna have to actually go and get a survey. That's
Okay.
gonna occur. And what we were suggesting is that we take one of those, instead of doing the entire property A2, we either do A1A, which is the 3-acre lot, because you have enough for that, or A1 for the big part and A2 for the small part. We're just trying to fix it before it becomes even more of a problem.
Right.
Now, I'm not trying to drag you back out here again. It is just because I know you've come a couple of times and we're not giving you the right advice to be able to get it done. You ultimately, if you're gonna put a second residence out there with a second municipal address, you're gonna have to subdivide that property. So you're gonna incur the expense of a survey either way.
Okay.
Okay? So that's what we're trying to accomplish here so that we don't cause you some problems in the future. We got a motion and a second, so we're gonna go to a vote, but just understand that's what we're trying to accomplish. Thank you.
Okay.
The motion is to go to A2 as an MHO, and that was by Mr. Randolph and Ms. Casabon seconded. Any further discussion, Mr. Randolph?
Yes, to staff.
Turn your mic.
All right. Is there any other zoning opportunity that can be taken other than an A2 that could accommodate their need and also be able to basically comply with the zoning ordinances?
Between the A1 and the A2, you have the A1A with a minimum lot size of 3 acres. Now, I don't know if the owner here is willing to go to a 3-acre parcel and, sell or give a 3-acre parcel to her son.
Okay.
Basically donating 3 acres. Which
Yeah.
we would only be able to expose what the unit would use. Because even looking at the area that we want to put it, there's a lot of,
Wouldn't build on the 3 acres.
yeah,
Yeah.
no,
Site,
right.
giving 3, or subdividing 3 acres out of
Yeah, and that's the minimum that you could do on that particular zoning?
Under
is the
that
3?
particular zoning, A1A is a minimum lot size of 3 acres.
Okay?
And again, you, like Mr. Willie and Mr. Richard said, you still would have to incur the cost to get the survey done and make the plat out, but, you know, it's something that can be considered. And do you want to think about it and go back and talk to Ms. Helen and come back to us instead of trying to make a decision tonight?
Well, we keep delaying it, and,
Okay.
you know,
Okay.
we're just trying to get something, because I'm not sure what, even if this was approved, what my next step would be is the contact a surveyor. To
Okay.
come out, okay.
Well, we'll go it on, and I'll keep
Okay,
my
we
motion
have
as it
a-
is.
We have a motion and a second to go A2 and MHO. Please vote.
No, I'm,
We're not.
We only have four.
We've got a tie vote, so the motion fails. All right, so Mr. Richard,
Thank you. If you would be willing to amend your petition from A1 to A1A, I think we might be able to support that. You're still going to need to get your survey. And I think you can accomplish exactly what you're trying to accomplish. No one's going to build in that area that's down below anyway,
Yeah.
and we can protect the neighborhood or the residents. So, but only you can amend your petition. We can't tell you to do A1A. So if you want us to reconsider the motion at going to A1A,
if that's our only choice at this
well,
point.
no, your other choice is to
be
go
able
get the
to-
survey and.
Would we still be able to put a manufactured home out there?
Yes, we'll put the.
Okay, so it
we'll
wouldn't
put-
have to be modular?
No, we'll put the
Okay.
MHO on top of it. I think the issue is the A2 is the size,
Yeah.
okay?
So, yeah,
Well, then I'll put forth, with the petitioner's request, I'll put forth a motion that we approve it to move it, the zoning to A1A with the MHO
but they'll have
overlay.
to survey 3 acres.
okay, we
instead
have
of
a
1.
motion by Mr. Richard to go to A1A with the mobile home overlay, or manufactured housing overlay, excuse me. Mr. Fitzmars,
I'll second.
seconded by Mr. Fitzmars. Any further discussion? Please vote. That
That
passes.
has been approved.
Okay, that passed unanimously.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. So, just give me a call tomorrow. Okay, thanks, Helen. Thank y'all.
Item 2, 2019-1410 ZC. Existing zoning is A2 Suburban District. Proposed zoning is A3 Suburban District, 1 acre. Petitioners Grand Homes LLC, J. Plough. Owner is Grand Homes LLC, John Plough. Location, parcel located on the southwest corner of Brewster Road and Grand Oaks Boulevard, being parcel B4 Madisonville. Staff?
The 2025 future land use plan calls for the area to be developed with residential uses that are compatible with the surrounding area. Staff doesn't have any objection to the request, considering that the abutting residential subdivisions to the south and west have similar or higher density than the A3 suburban zoning designation. At this time, staff would like to recommend that the request for A3 suburban be approved. And I emailed you a revised copy of the staff report as it should have said approved.
Mr. Morone?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul Marone, members of the commission, on behalf of Mr. Plough and Grand Homes LLC. As Ms. Lambert noted, this particular parcel located along Brewster Road is in the vicinity of other parcels, lots, and developments which have densities that are equal to the A3 that we're requesting or greater. To the south, there is a large A4 development that abuts it. Across Brewster Road and to the east, there is an existing A3 development. Right across Brewster Road, while it's zoned A2, the uses that are there are more in line with the A3 zoning. So we believe that this is compatible with the area. We'd respectfully request your approval of the A3 for this particular parcel. I would also point out, some of you may recall that you entertained a similar request last month. That parcel that you heard and approved last month from A2 to A3 is adjacent to this. I also have letters of no objection from the 3 adjacent landowners that surround this parcel, all of which have no objection and support the request. I'd be happy to answer any questions that any of the commissioners may have, but we respectfully request that you concur with the staff's recommendation and approve the A3 request before you.
Thank you, Mr. Morone. Anyone in the audience wish to speak for this? Anyone wish to speak against? Mr. Morone, you don't have any rebuttal, so I'm going to bring it back to the commission. Mr. Baggert.
I make a motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Baggert to approve. Mr. Fitzmaurice. Seconded by Mr. Fitzmaurice. Any further discussion? Please vote.
The motion is passed.
Thank you.
To approve.
Item 3, 2019-1430-ZC, existing zonings NC4 Neighborhood Institutional District and A2, proposed zonings NC4 Neighborhood Institutional District. It's 0.67 acres. The petitioner is Joan Fusel, Paul J. Morone, owner, CM Combs Properties LLC, Chris Combs. Location is the parcel located on the north side of Dummy Line Road, west of LA 21, Madisonville. Staff?
Staff doesn't have any objection to the request as the petition rezoning request would correct what is now a split zone lot, and it would allow for permitted use listed under NC4. At this time, staff does not have any objection to the request.
Thank you. Mr. Morone.
Thank you, Mr. Daugherty. Again, Paul Morone, this time on behalf of CM Combs Properties LLC and Mr. Chris Combs, who's present this evening. If you will look at the staff packet, and in particular the aerial and the zoning map snapshot that you have there, you will see that, as Ms. Lambert noted, this particular parcel has a split zone with the eastern, I'll say 2/3 of the lot being zoned NC4 currently, and the western 1/3 being zoned A2. Mr. Combs also, in addition to owning this parcel, owns the parcel at the corner of Dummy Line and Highway 21, which is zoned NC4 and where his office is located. The purpose of the request this evening is simply to make the zoning uniform on this track. As you can see, there's a great deal of NC4 in the area, so we believe that it's consistent with what's there. Also, I would point out that if the request is approved, that the depth of NC4 on this side of Dummy Line Road would be consistent with the depth of NC4 on the south side of Dummy Line Road. So we would not be extending the NC4 zoning further to the west, if you will. We would rather be lining it up with what you see and with what is consistent on the other side of Dummy Line Road. So we view this more as a correction to the zoning, looking for consistency, and would respectfully request your approval in accordance with the staff's recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Morone. Anyone in the audience wish to speak in favor? Anyone wish to speak against? Bring it back to the commission. Mr. Randolph.
Mr. Morone, who owns the property on the south side of the property that is zoned, that A2 piece of property?
The A2 piece of property that is within this parcel.
Right.
Mr. Combs does.
Okay, okay.
It's one track. It
Okay,
just has
gotcha.
2 zones right now.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Randolph to approve. Mr. Fitzmaurice.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Ms. Casabon? The motion has passed to approve.
Thank you. Item 4, 2019-1439 ZC. Existing zonings A2, proposed zonings A2 and MHO, manufactured housing overlay. It's 2.5 acres. Petitioner's Mark David Berserter. The owner is Mark David Berserter. Parcel located on the south side of West Power Line Road, west of LA 41, being 37190 West Power Line Road, Pearl River. Anyone here to speak on this? Please come to the mic and state your name and address.
Hey, I'm Mark Bersuda, and my address is...
State your name and address, please.
Mr. Chairman, would you like to hear staff comments?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, staff comments. Thank you, Helen.
The 2025 future land use plan calls for the area to be developed with residential uses, including manufactured homes. Staff does not have any objection to the request, and staff feels that the request for a manufactured housing overlay designation be approved.
Thank you. Now state your name and address for me.
Mark Bersuda, 37190 West Power Line Road, Pearl
Okay.
River.
And the reason that you're asking for the manufactured housing overlay.
My son lives there, and I want my daughter behind him, actually. I'm trying to keep my kids close. You know? But my son's been there about 3 years. In the back of it is basically 330 foot of woods. So we're trying to clear the back so my daughter can get back there.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone in the audience wish to speak in favor? Anyone wish to speak against? I want to close, okay, we've got a number of people that want to speak against. Let's see, Christina Fleming?
I live right directly behind, do I need to state, I'm Christina Fleming. I live directly behind, that piece of property. And, I just want, basically I want to know exactly what's being done in front of me, the piece of property. Because there is a right-of-way road between my aunt and their property, and I live in the back. So my only way to get in and out of my property is through that road that goes between their two properties. I don't want it, I don't know what his intentions exactly. I know he said it for his daughter, but just like the other one a little while ago, I don't want a trailer park there. It's been a family-owned area. All of my family lives around me, and I have young kids, and I'm just trying to figure out exactly what's being done on that piece of property.
Okay, we'll give them an opportunity to respond in a moment. We're going to hear some of the other people, and we'll give you 5 minutes afterwards. Yes. Yes, we have a card. Sonia Pace? All of these?
Sonia Page, 37294 East Power Line. I live about 3 doors down. It's obviously acre lot, so it's a little ways down. But we're just trying to maintain the stability of our neighborhood. There are manufactured homes in the area, mobile homes, we understand that. But we don't want any additional mobile homes, and it was my understanding that it was going to be a rental property. I know that one person that lives, his son lives there and pays rent. And we just really don't want to keep that to a minimum. We don't want to add any additional mobile homes to the area. My husband and I have lived there for quite a few years, and we're just, you know, we want to stay there and retire there, and we'd like for it to stay the way that it is and not, like I said, get more mobile homes in the area. Thank you.
Thank you. Nicholas Bolstard? Nicholas? Is there Nicholas here?
Nicholas Baltzford. I live at 64271 West Powerline Road, and honestly, it's a quiet area. Don't like many mobile homes, and it's going to decrease property value of his home. So I've been living there since 2007. I like the way it is. I like to keep it that way.
Okay, thank you. Daryl Hickman? Daryl Hickman? Amber Boyd? Amber Boyd? Nicholas Murray? Nicholas Murray? Nicholas is in here. Anita Yarborough? Okay, thank you. Charles Yarborough?
My name is Charles Yarborough. I actually live around the block on Cary Road, which is the main drag through there, which is literally a drag strip now because
What's
of
your
TD
address?
Smith. 64173 Cary Road. And it's actually my daughter that lives behind there. See if I can get this up. I guess we're just mainly, my sister's May lives right across the street from this property. They do the shared driveway. My older brother actually owned the property and we purchased it from him. Reason the property is divided the way it is because originally I owned it and my sister owned it, and we bought it because the original guy that sold this to us was the president of First Bank, back in '76. We had bought the property, and instead of wanting aircraft landing strips, we decided to buy the 10 acres, but instead of having strips that were 300 foot wide by 1,300 foot long, she took the front 5 acres, I took the back 5 acres, and that's why that property in the back she lives on is totally blocked in. The only driveway in and out of there is that shared road between the Caspers, his son Mark, and my daughter Christine and her husband. She's got a lot of health issues, so if anything's going on that would block this road or damage the road where it can't be used, because we totally maintain it from the Caspers back to the line, the road would have to be maintained properly, and I'm the one that usually maintains it for it because I live around the block and I own the tractor. But we just want to make sure we don't wind up with more than, I mean, the neighborhood's been pretty nice. We haven't had a lot of mobile homes that's been moved in there. We have a big trailer park already. It's at the other end of Powerline, Mangano Trailer Park. And we have all kind of problems with the people that seems to rent there. They don't obey speed laws and stop signs and stuff like that. So we wind up with a lot of problems right there at that four-way stop on both Powerline and Cary Road. We're just concerned mainly, like I say, with my daughter's health and being able to make sure that road's maintainable at all times, and also to we don't want our property values. I own a home. I don't own manufactured housing or anything, but we notice the more they put those in there, our property values actually decrease the more mobile homes you got in an area. So I guess you'd say that's my thoughts on the subject.
Okay, thank you. And another person is Christy LaSalle.
Christy LaSalle, 37350 East Powerline Road, Pearl River. I'm a concerned neighbor. I am of the understanding that for many years now, new mobile homes were not allowed in our parish. Is that true? What is true?
You can have mobile homes in the parish. Now,
In all parts of the parish?
I believe so. And Ellen, is that correct? Pretty much all parts of the
I
parish?
thought it
are
was
non-incorporated?
restricted.
It is restricted to the manufactured housing overlay. You have to have the proper zoning for mobile homes to be allowed.
And this does not have the proper zoning, and they want to change it to the proper zoning. Is that true?
That's correct.
Okay, I oppose that because I'm opposed to mobile homes. They're not permanent and could be transient, and I would, since I own a home that is permanent, I'd like to see whatever goes in be permanent in my neighborhood. And so I object to this.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak against? Ellen? Yes, ma'am.
Hi. Denise Drummel, 64271 West Powerline Road. I am opposed to bringing another mobile home in. Being a realtor over 20 years, property values drop. I have a home back there I built, and I don't want to see rentals. I don't want to see any of that stuff in our neighborhood, like they were saying earlier. Oh, I filled one out, ma'am. You know, I don't want to see more rentals coming in, like they were saying with Mangano Trailer Park down the street. We do have a lot of riffraff. There are people coming and going all the time because you don't know who's going to rent them. So having grandkids and bicycles and stuff like that, mobile homes just usually bring a lot of bad renters. So that's it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak against? We'll go to rebuttal. Mr. Versater, you'd like to respond to some of the comments?
Yeah, one thing is I had talked to Miss May. That's the one everybody's so concerned about, Philly May, the lady that's sick, because I know her 20 years, okay? And I had talked to her before I ever contacted St. Tammany Parish. This trailer's gonna sit a little better than 600 feet off the street. Who's possibly gonna see it? There's one in front of it, there's trees in front of it. Who is possibly gonna see it, for one?
And it's
The-
only one trailer, not a trailer park.
Yeah, because I'm not doing no more than one. As far as the road's concerned, the bulk of the road I maintain, because me and Mr. Phil own that road together. I maintain the road, but the new driveway just tapers off the road on my property. It tapers off because I don't want a million people running up and down the road. But the road comes off of what I'm already maintaining. But the trailer you're not going to see from the street anyway. From 300 foot back, you're not going to see the trailer because it's blocked.
And it's all wooded, and we had planned on keeping woods, well, trees around it to protect everybody's privacy.
Okay, thank
But-
you.
But the Miss May, we all concerned about, I know Miss May and Mr. Phil, my neighbors, I know them 20-plus years since before I owned a property. So I know what's going on with them. But we had spoke to them, which I had thought she had told them it wasn't, not before we ever got here, to be honest, which I thought they knew. Apparently, Miss May didn't tell y'all.
Okay, all right. Thank you. All right. Those of you that are against, you've got 5-minute rebuttal if you wish to rebut anything that Mr. Versater has commented on. I see no one wanting to rebut. I'm going to close the floor to the public, bring it back to the commission. Mr. Baggert.
On this piece of property, is there a home on the front of it already? Not a mobile home, a home? A mobile home, okay.
That our son lives in.
And so we're trying to divide it into 2 lots and put a mobile home on the back.
The first one sits like 268 foot off the road.
Right.
Trees in front of it. The second one will be 300 foot behind it.
Need to,
Okay, I'll move on the zoning change.
moved by Mr. Baggert.
Approval.
To approve the A2 with the manufactured housing overlay.
Right.
Mr. Drum.
I'm not making any statement about Mr. Baggart's stuff. I've got this photograph, and I've got a drawing of the property, but I don't see any road. Could somebody out there show me on this thing where a road is at, please?
It's like right up the middle in between me and Mr. Bill.
Mr. Drum? Mr. Drum? It's covered by trees most of the time, so you can't even see the back road.
You have anything else, Mr. Drum?
Now that my eyes have been opened, I'll make a motion to accept the motion.
The second.
I second his motion.
Gonna second it? Mr. Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Bursuta, I've got a quick question for you. I'm over here. You come up to the microphone. This is one lot that's 2.5 acres, correct?
Correct.
You already have one mobile home on it, correct?
Yeah.
How many square feet?
Is the mobile home?
Yeah.
27 by 65, whatever that is.
Okay, that's over 1,000. The issue here is, are you planning on subdividing this property? Okay, the reason, am I correct that we're not allowed to have two homes on this one piece of property?
Yes, it is one residence per acre, and they have 2.5 acres, so they can.
Okay, so they don't have to subdivide it? They can keep the same address without subdividing as long as they fall?
They will get a separate address for the mobile home, but
But they
it's
don't have
not
to have a separate lot of record?
It's not mandatory for them to subdivide.
So what stops them from putting a third mobile home on it?
Because I don't want one.
No, I'm asking the staff, excuse me.
The zoning is one residence per acre.
Okay.
So at this time, they could place two residences and a guest house under 1,000 square feet.
Under 1,000 square feet, right? Okay. That answers my question, thank you.
All right. Commissioners, do you have any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. Please vote.
To approve. The motion to approve has passed.
Thank you. All right, next is item 5, 2019-1443-ZC. Existing zoning is A2. Proposed zoning is A2 and manufactured housing overlay. It's 0.25 acres. Petitioners Joseph and Melissa Spinoza. Owners Joseph and Melissa Spinoza. Parcel located on the south side of Bell Park Road, being Lot 37, Bell Park Subdivision, Ward 7, District 7. Are the Spinozas here? Please come up to the mic. State your name and address, please.
Mr. Chairman,
Staff report.
The 2025 future land use plan calls for the area to be developed with residential uses, including manufactured homes. Staff does not have any objection to the request and recommends that the request designation be approved.
Thank you.
My name is Joe Spinoza at 28400 Bell Park Road in Lacombe.
Thank you. And you're wanting to put a mobile home on this quarter acre?
Yes.
Okay. All right, is there anyone in the audience to, wishes to speak for? Anyone wishing to speak against? All right, I'm gonna bring it back to the commission. Mr. Baggett.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Mr. Baggett. Mr. Fitzmaurice.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Fitzmaurice. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
The motion to approve passed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is 2019-1443-Z. Oh, that's the one we just did. Sorry about that. Next is a text change, 2019-1446-ZC. An ordinance amending the St. Tammany Parish Unified Development Code, Section 130-5, definitions to include additional language in the definition of funeral home. I'm going to ask staff.
Let me take this one. This is an ordinance that amends the definition of funeral home to exclude crematoriums. And if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer them.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
if I would be allowed just to make a few comments.
Sure.
Staff is not opposed to this proposed amendment to the definition. However, I would like to bring up to your attention that if in the event that you approve this change, then the only zoning where crematoriums will be allowed would be under the PF1. Staff feels that crematoriums should probably be allowable in other zoning districts besides PF1. This is not what's in front of you right now, and we're not opposed to the proposed amendment to the definition. However, we just wanted to bring up to your attention that, in the event that this text change is approved, PF1 will be the only zoning district that will allow crematoriums.
Thank you. Mr. Randolph.
Helen, I appreciate that information. And my concern is if crematoriums are already in other areas of our zoning ordinances, why would this one text change for this alter the rest of where the crematoriums are?
Well, crematoriums have been an accessory to funeral homes or funeral services. And it appears to me that the council wants to clarify the definition, and wherever funeral homes are allowed, it would not automatically allow a crematorium as an accessory.
Does that answer your question?
Did I answer your question?
Ron?
Now, some
Yes.
crematoriums have already been constructed in the parish, and in the event that this text change is approved, then they will become grandfathered uses.
Okay.
That was my concern. Because if we have crematoriums already established and in place, how does this ordinance affect those that's already operating in that capacity? And what you're saying is that those will be exceptions to the rule or grandfathered in.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir, and I move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Randolph to approve. Mr. Lord. Turn your mic on.
Because there's funeral homes all over the parish, and most all of them offer crematoriums services.
Yes.
And if we didn't grandfather them in, most of them have got a lot of investment. So that was a concern of mine. Would this ordinance require that the property be rezoned, or would it be just automatically grandfathered?
It would become a legal non-conforming use, so it would be grandfathered in.
Okay, it would just be automatically grandfathered in.
Yeah, if it was constructed before the adoption of this ordinance, it would be grandfathered in.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
Unless if legal has more information that you would like to add.
Commissioner Drum.
Helen, if somebody wanted to build a crematorium, just a crematorium, what zoning would they have to go under then? Again, PF1?
If this ordinance is approved by the council, then they will have to, crematoriums will only be allowed under the PF1. So if someone wants to build a funeral home and a crematorium, they will have to request zoning change to to PF1 or purchase a property that is already zoned PF1.
Or if somebody wanted to build a crematorium, like let's say for animals, pets, I can see a big argument with the surrounding neighborhood that they don't want their backyard smelling like a crematorium. Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
Mr. Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The only concern I have is when we receive these, we don't really know why these changes are being made. Okay, we don't know where they came from. And one problem with what I'm hearing is that if we would approve this and send it back to the council, essentially any new funeral homes would be prohibited from offering these services, so we'd be basically giving someone an unfair competitive advantage. They'd have to go out and get rezoned property. Without knowing what the problem is, it makes it difficult for me to turn around and give businesses that are in place an unfair advantage over a new business that would come into the area. That's my comment.
Thank you, Mr. Richard. We need to see if there's anyone in the public that wishes to speak either for or against on this particular ordinance. Okay, yes, sir.
Is my mic on? Is it on? It's on. So this ordinance came about as a result of a situation where there was an existing funeral home that had been, or a building, a structure, over in Slidell that was in unincorporated St. Tammany. It had a different use. It wasn't a funeral home. The zoning on the property was correct in that it was commercial. The person who was buying it wanted to open a funeral home and crematorium abutting a residential neighborhood, actually surrounded by a residential neighborhood. It eventually was denied. The annexation was withdrawn because there was so much objection from the neighbors that they did not want a crematorium abutting a residential neighborhood, and a well-established neighborhood. So then we came back to the parish and looked at it. We said, well, anybody can put a funeral home in so long as you've got the correct zoning on the funeral home, but do you really want a crematorium next to a residential neighborhood? And that is the question. It would be better to have them come before this commission to ask for a rezoning and see where the property is located, where it's located in reference to a particular neighborhood or other businesses, for this commission to make that decision. And I agree with Helen. In the future, once this is adopted, then maybe some other zones need to be looked at. But that's the reasoning behind why this comes before you tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Hand. We've got a gentleman raised his hand. Come up and state your name and address.
My name's Joseph Mesh. Concerning item 1449, I live right next to it. And what I don't understand
Wait a minute.
is...
We're not on 1449. We're on 1446. That has to do with the crematorium. Okay. Thank you. We'll get to that one. Anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak for or against on this particular amendment? All right, we've had commission, let's see, we got a motion and a second? No, we have not.
Yes,
We
we
do?
have a motion from Mr. Randolph, but no
That's right,
second.
that's right. We need a second. I'll second. Seconded by Mr. Lord. Please vote.
The motion to approve has passed.
Thank you. Item 7, 2019-1447-ZC. A2 Suburban District, MHO Manufactured Housing Overlay, and RO Rural Overlay. Proposed zonings A3 Manufactured Housing Overlay and RO Rural Overlay. It's 1.63 acres. The petitioner's Judy Cannon. The owner's Judy Cannon. Parcel located on the west side of Louisiana Highway 41, south of Louisiana Highway 21, being 81833 Highway 41, Bush. Staff?
The 2025 future land use plan calls for the area to be developed with a mix of uses at varying densities. Staff does not see any compelling reason to recommend approval of the requested A3 suburban district, considering the surrounded area is zoned A2 suburban district. The staff recommends that the request for the A3 suburban district designation be denied.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. State your name and address, please.
Hi, I'm Judy Cannon, 81833 Highway 41, Bush, Louisiana. I don't have any neighbors. I live on a 4-lane highway. There is a lot that is just to my south that is 0.525 acres, which I don't see how that can be considered A2. I'm just saying. I have 1.63 acres. My sister is wanting to move to Bush. I want to give her a portion of my property so that she can put a modular home on it and live close by me, because they really can't afford to buy a 1-acre lot and have it fixed, because you're looking at close to $60,000 just for that. Like I said, I don't have any neighbors, and I don't really see that it would affect anyone. I was told that I could put a guest home, but I don't really see the difference in the impact. I would rather it be in her name so that if something happened to me, she wouldn't be homeless.
All right. Thank you. Any of the rest of y'all want to comment?
No, that's my sister.
I just
Okay.
want to move home.
All right. Let me see if there's anyone else that wants to speak in favor. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak against? We'll close the floor to the public and bring it back to the commission. Does some of the commissioners want to make a motion or have some discussion? Pardon? Mr. Randolph.
Ms. Cannon.
Yes.
Of this 1.63 acres that
Right.
you're trying to get zoned for your sister, how much of this property that's on that side of Highway 41 is your property?
I'm sorry.
In other words, how much of this property that the 1.63 acres is yours that does not impact anyone else?
It's, the whole piece is mine. The 1.63 acres is mine. My house is a little to the south end, and I have a
I got
section
you.
on the north.
Okay.
That,
Okay. Okay. You answered my question. Thanks. I misunderstood you.
Okay, anything else? Mr. Willie?
Yes, ma'am. Are you looking to sell that or give that half acre or acre to your sister?
yes, and it doesn't matter how much. I mean, maybe you want to do one piece as continued, to stay an acre and then the 0.63 to her.
Right.
Or if you want to divide, that's up to you all.
Right. Yeah, I move for approval on this.
Motion by Mr. Willie to approve. Mr. Fitzmaurice.
A second.
Second by Mr. Fitzmaurice. Any further discussion? Please vote.
The motion to approve has passed.
Thank you. All right, next item is item 8, 2019-1449-ZC. Existing zoning is A1 Suburban. Proposed zoning is A1A Suburban District. Acres is 9.84. Petitioners Mark and Vieta Collins. Owners Mark and Vieta Collins. Parcel located on the north side of $1 Million Road, east of Honeysuckle Estates Loop, Covington, Ward 2, District 6. Staff?
The 2025 Future Land Use Plan designates the site to be developed with residential and agricultural uses and as a conservation area for the preservation of the natural landscape and natural systems of the site. Staff does not see any compelling reason to recommend approval of the requested zoning change to A1A Suburban District, considering the property is abutting A1 Suburban District on the north, south, and west sides. The staff recommends that the request for the A1A Suburban District designation be denied.
Thank you. Yes, sir. State your name and address.
My name is Mark Collins, 17221 $1 Million Road. And the reason I'm trying to rezone it is I want to give my daughter 4 acres to build a single-family home. My sister and my mother at the same time bought that 10-acre tract that was on the west of us, and they split it, did the same thing. So my sister and my mother lived there on the adjoining property. So, and my wife and I built a single-family home on our 9.84 acres, and want to give some property to my daughter to build a single-family home, and we'd be sharing the same road.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Anyone else in the audience that wish to speak supporting this zoning change? Anyone wishing to speak against the zoning change? Bring it back to the commission. Pardon? The gentleman that came up a minute ago, is it? He don't want to speak, okay. All right. We'll bring it back to the commission. Ms. Casbah.
Yes, will she be using either road that your sister built or your mother built?
She'll be using my road.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Because I don't even want to know what you spent on that road.
A lot.
It's rather hilly, just,
Yeah, over
I watched it
50,000.
for months building this road, the red clay and
Over
stuff moving in.
$400,000 into this property already.
That, yes, it's a very, very, the I remember your mother and your sister came up, and these are gorgeous homes. It is on the wooded side, not the riverside, just beautiful wooded area, and it's next to the old Honeysuckle subdivision, so I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Ms. Casabon to approve. Mr. Willie. Second by Mr. Willie. Any further discussion? Please vote.
The motion to approve has passed.
Thank you. Next item, item 9, 2019-1450-ZC. Existing zoning's A1 suburban district, proposed zoning's A1 suburban district and manufactured housing overlay. It's 1.68 acres. Petitioner is Jordan Fernandez. Owner's Jordan Fernandez. Parcel located on the north and south sides of Breen Road, east of Gottschall Road, Ward 1, District 3. Staff?
The 2025 future land use plan calls for the area to be developed with residential uses, including manufactured homes. Staff does not have any objection to the request and recommends that the request be approved.
Thank you. Yes, sir. State your name and address.
My name's Jordan Fernandez. I live at 10010 Breen Road, and I purchased the property right behind my parents, where I currently live now, and I'm looking to put a mobile home on the property.
Okay. Anything else? All right, thank you. Anyone else in the public wish to speak in support of this? Anyone wish to speak against? Well, come up and state your name and address. You can raise that mic up. You don't have to bend over.
My name is Walter Ray Jenkins. I live at 10090 Breen Road. I'm actually in seeing distance from those folks there, and I'm here for the same reason. And I mean, it's a good neighborhood. My mother lives across the street. Mr. Wally Gottschall lives there. We all friends. We all know each other. And I mean, they're good people, so I don't see any reason for them not to be there.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in favor? Anyone wish to speak against? I'll close it to the commission, to the public, and bring it back to the commission. Mr. Fitzmaurice.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Fitzmaurice to approve. Mr. Willie.
Second.
Second by Mr. Willie. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Ms. Casabon? The motion to approve is passed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Item 10, we had moved up and taken care of that one. Item 11, 2019-1452-ZC. Existing zoning's A2 and A3 suburban. Proposed zoning is A2, A3, and rural overlay RO. It's 10.45 acres. Petitioners Jones and Fussell, LLP, Jeffrey Shane. Owners Walter and June Davison. Parcel located on the southwest corner of Dove Park Road, west of Louisiana Highway 59, Mandeville. Ward 4, District 5. Staff?
The 2025 future land use plan calls for the area to be developed as a planned district with single-family residential uses and conservation area. The objectives of the rural overlay designation are to preserve the forest and other undeveloped land and to allow for the conduct of agricultural uses and related business, including construction of single-family residences. Note that only the permitted uses shall be allowed under the rural overlay are the ones listed below here, which are the agricultural uses and residential uses. Staff does not have any objection to the request, considering that the site is surrounded by undeveloped land on the south, east, and west, and single-family residential lots approximately half acre to an acre in size on the north and west side. Note that the site is proposed to be developed with a single-family residence in an animal sanctuary, and at this time, staff would like to recommend approval of the request for a rural overlay.
Thank you, Ms. Lambert. Yes, sir.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Commission. Jeff Shane of the Jones Fussell Law Firm at P.O. Box 1810 in Covington. I have the pleasure of representing Mr. and Mrs. P.J. Goodwine, who are with me this evening in the front row. And they are the prospective purchasers of the property that is the subject of this zoning case this evening. My clients currently live on the South Shore and look forward to acquiring this 10.45 acres that's located on Dove Park Road, where they will build their single-family residence and live there. And in addition to living at this location, it is their hope to build a second structure, a barn structure, which will give them the opportunity to have some animals on presence. Perhaps also the development of what staff has referred to as an animal sanctuary, where they would be able to house rescue animals. This will not be an active business with the general public. It is not a use that requires any other form of zoning. I met with staff actually back in the fall to discuss what my clients had in mind. So it is, again, primarily a single-family residential use with what I would term to be a modest agricultural use, in that there will be animals in the barn. So if any of you have any further questions or comments, I'll be glad to address them. Otherwise, we would appreciate your consideration of this request, and you would refer this matter to the council to add the rural overlay to the existing single-family zoning. Thank you much.
Mr. Shane. Anyone in the audience wish to speak in favor of this zoning change? Yes, sir. Please come up and state your name and address.
My name is Michael Giafaloni. I live at 1065 Dove Park Road, which is directly across the street from this property. And I'd be honest with you, I came here because I didn't know anything about the development, and I was kind of curious about it. But after hearing this gentleman speak for it, I have to say that I think it's a great way to preserve the character of the neighborhood. It's a beautiful place to live. My family's on the property for 50 years now. It's a little under 9 acres, and I like the character and the feel of this neighborhood, and I feel that this single-family home and potential for an animal sanctuary is a great use of the land. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in favor? Anyone wish to speak against the zoning change? Please state your name and address.
My name is Dave Golden. I'm at 1170 Dove Park Road. And frankly, I'm not here to speak in favor of or against. Really, this came upon us very quickly, and seeking some clarification, and now I might go in one direction or the other. The concept of an animal sanctuary appeals to all of us. Particularly, I understand it's the cat sanctuary. If any of you have cats and they're in your yard, people think you need more cats. So we have become a cat sanctuary on our own, and kind of at an amateur level. So I applaud that. My concern is the density. A3's got a certain density, and we're all in that. What is the density for a rural overlay? What can that develop into? Does anybody know?
Ms. Lambert, I'll let you
How many
answer.
barns and buildings in a rural setting, or trucks or equipment, can be on that property in the future?
Let me get Ms. Lambert to answer that for you.
As far as if I can answer your question, it was with two different answers. The zoning in itself is not being changed. Most of the property is zone A2 suburban, so the minimum lot size is 1 acre. This is not going to be changed. The rural overlay allows you to have more than one barn. However, if this is turned into a commercial business, then additional criteria will have to be met. It will have to meet all the parking requirements, driveway requirements, and so as to answer your question, there's no necessarily maximum number of barns that could be built on a property. However, if it's turned into a commercial business, then it will have to meet a lot more criteria, all the parish criteria for commercial buildings.
Thank you. My only other concern is the wetland issue. That whole thousands of acres there that is undeveloped, our neighbors, it's there because that is a natural retention pond. It's been there for thousands of years. And most of the area drains into it. And we've developed all around it, and now we're starting to develop that piece. I'm concerned, and several of our neighbors are concerned, and about where's that water going to go that has been draining in there for thousands of years. Now we're going to start to fill it, And I applaud you for being able to pay the wetland fees for that area, because I know they're steep. I retired from Stennis Space Center as their wetland mitigation manager, and I know a little bit of what I speak. The fees are extremely high to develop ultra-prime wetlands, which that is. I'm a little concerned about when development starts there, how are you going to account for the drainage that used to go this way and now is going to have to be built up and drain into our properties, into our yards, into our houses, into our cars? And that's my concern. And I don't speak for or against. In general, I applaud and I'm in favor of the sanctuary and then moving a single-family home there. I have no objection to that. I'm worried about the drainage. What's it going to do to the surrounding area?
Okay,
Thank you.
Can you fill out a speaker card, please?
Get a speaker card, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had one.
Okay.
I didn't put down whether I was for or against, though.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name's Leslie Jeanfro, and I live at 408 Sparrow Street. And this property will surround mine, the 352 by 352. So I am concerned as well, not really necessarily saying for or against, but some of the issues that he talked about, the wetlands as well as the drainage. I have a picture, I don't know if you would be willing to look at it, as to what happens to my property currently. This was from 2017, when we get kind of heavy rain. The drainage that he spoke about, it all, from what I understand, goes down and then passes through the wetlands that are not necessarily theirs. I think there is some passage, but it goes out towards Dove Park. So I guess what I wanted to say is that one of the things I don't understand is the rural overlay. Why is that needed? I think it's a good idea to have the home and then a sanctuary at the same time, kind of, if it's only cats, who all wants, maybe horses and donkeys and things like that. So I guess I'm here for information purposes to find out exactly what's going to be done with the property. And then my other concern is that down the road, for whatever reason, if they want to sell that, then the rural overlay is left on the property for years to come. And so even though they don't want to use it, it's my understanding, like, you could put a 5,000 square foot structure on there. You could also put like dirt hauling equipment with the rural overlay. So I didn't know if there was some kind of accommodation to be made or stipulation that it's to be used just for the sanctuary purposes or just for the home. So my concern is further down the road, what would happen with this property. So
Okay.
I think that's it.
All right, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak for or against? Mr. Shane, we'll go to rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We appreciate the concerns and questions raised by the residents, and I'll try to address those individually, but also sort of collectively as well. For those that have spoken who probably don't come here often and don't understand the process as well, I do want to emphasize that this is only a zoning hearing. This does not provide for the re-subdivision of the property or the development of the property. So I think first and foremost, it needs to be reconfirmed that this is a 10.45 acre tract that is zoned for single-family residential only, which means it can only be one residence, but there certainly can be accessory or support structures. Furthermore, my client is in the due diligence process as it relates to purchasing the property, and we fully understand that in order to be permitted to construct facilities, structures on the property, that we have to do our own due diligence and make sure that we're in accord with all laws, whether it's local, state, or federal. And in particular, that would mean wetlands, that would mean critical drainways, And certainly in connection with the construction of improvements, you have to submit a drain plan to show how you're going to affect drainage and how you're going to drain the property. So I think that most of the concerns expressed, hopefully I've addressed in some manner. Rural overlay per se does not have anything to do with density, in that it would not provide for multiple residences. My client literally intends to build one barn-type structure that actually has a residential architectural look to complement the home. This is a wooded tract. The home and barn will be behind the home, and it will be well off the road. I would dare say that it might be within eyesight, but it won't be near, if you will, any adjoining property owner's line. There will be no commercial activities per se. Again, it's an animal sanctuary concept for the barn. So this will not be, as staff has explained to you, if in fact the property were to be utilized in a classic commercial manner, it would need some form of commercial zoning, but there would be also other safeguards, such as it relates to access and parking and things of that nature. None of those things we intend to get into. I mean, at the end of the day, this is my client's personal residence, or plans to be their client's personal residence, just as these good neighbors have their personal residence. So they obviously want to live in an environment that would be hopefully along the same lines that the folks that live out there now. I don't believe that anything we intend to do will create incompatibility or actual concern to others that live in that area. And the rural overlay, I think most would agree, is a really a very mild overlay that provides an opportunity to expand into what's really still sort of the agrarian, agricultural. In this case, it's for the purpose of having animals as well. The last thing I'd like to add is that we are also aware that to the extent, and you've had many zoning cases in the past, that we might have animals that exceed a certain number, that we have an obligation to procure a permit from the parish in that regard, because there are safeguards in place to make sure that these animals are going to be in the barn and properly cared for, et cetera. So I've already consulted with staff about that, and that's a permit we know that we must obtain administratively. So although we're still in the planning stage, hopefully it should be obvious to you that we are trying to address the things that are not only important to us, but the things that we hear tonight are important to the others that live around us. And we believe that we can build, obviously, a very nice residence with a complementary barn that hopefully will fit into this Dove Park community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Shane. Any of the folks that spoke not for or against, would you like to rebut anything?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Shane, for the clarification. With that clarification, I would stand here before you and speak in favor of this change and welcome them to the neighborhood should it pass. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. The lady over here, did you want to speak?
Miss Leslie? Miss Johnson?
Okay, thank you. All right, seeing no other comments from the public, I'm going to bring it back to the commission. Mr. Willie.
I guess my question is to staff. Usually I'm a big supporter of rural overlay, but being this far south in the parish, with A3 zoning in place, I guess my concern is that in case something happens later years down the road, that rural overlay is in place. Now, you mentioned about being a commercial, you have to go through other permits if you want to do a commercial, but suppose somebody just want to do a farm, a pig farm, or a horse farm in an A3 zoning. Would that be permissible without any other permits? Could they just outright do it?
Well, the rural overlay, if it is approved, would allow them to have a farm. Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, and but my concern is there's, that's a residential area pretty much, and it's got a potential of being more dense. And so my concern was about the rural overlay in that area because of that, because a farm even a pig farm, would be outright permitted in the middle of the neighborhood. And that would
What-
be just a concern.
If it would
that
be
happen.
approved, if you want to refer to a pig farm or cow farm would be allowed. Now, we're just talking about raising animals. That's the only allowable uses.
Right.
We're not talking about, it's just
Not a
to
dairy
raise.
or any type of commercial venture, but just raising a bunch of animals.
Yeah, I mean, they would have to be
But that'd be in the middle of a
properly
neighborhood,
sheltered and.
Residential area, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right, I just had a question.
Okay, Mr. Randolph.
That is one of the questions that I would like Mr. Shane or the petitioner to address, because we're all for enterprise, but also the safety of our community and neighborhoods, you know, and you as well, and you know that. But that's a good point Mr. Willie has brought up, so. Can you address
May I?
that?
Yes, sir, I can. I think the economics of that area, the value of the property would not support a pig farm, a horse farm, or anything else. With all due respect, there's a reason that you find farms in more rural areas where, quite frankly, the value of land and the density of development is what it is. In this particular area, if my client or any successor that owns this property has those objects in mind, I think they better move to the north or to the northern part of the parish, where they're more likely to find properties that are traditionally put into agricultural use, where you would find those types of activities. So again, choosing the rural overlay was, quite frankly, the most innocuous or softest landing place for us to have an opportunity to build a barn with an animal sanctuary for cats. And that was the decision that we made. Hopefully that's a good answer.
Thank you, Mr. Shane. I'd like to make a motion to approve.
We have a motion by Mr. Randolph to approve. Commissioner Drum.
Excuse me. I would like to say that my wife and I have been married for 40 years, and we've been living in a human sanctuary with a bunch of cats for a long, long time. And so I would like to second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Drum. We have a second by Mr. Drum. Ms. Casbon, your name was up and then. Okay. All right, thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Mr. Willie? The motion to approve is passed.
Thank you. Yes. All right, item 13, 2019-1457-ZC, existing zoning's A1 suburban. Proposed zoning is A1 suburban and manufactured housing overlay. It's 1 acre. Petitioner's Walter Jenkins. Owner's Walter Jenkins. Parcel located on the north and south sides of Breen Road, east of Gottschall Road, being 10090 Breen Road, Ward 1, District 3. Staff?
The 2025 future land use plan calls for the area to be developed with residential uses, including manufactured home. Staff doesn't have any objection to the request and would like to recommend approval.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name is Walter Jenkins. I live at 10090 Breen Road, Covington. And I lived on the property for, I think, 22 years and then moved off of it. And my mother, she lives right across the street from it. And like I said, that fella there here earlier, he's going to be my neighbor. And it's a really good place, and I can't wait to put my kids back on it.
Thank you. Anyone in the audience wish to speak in favor of this change? Anyone wish to speak against? I'll bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Fitzmaurice.
I have one question for you over here. you spoke you spoke for your buddies, they left you.
I know, I told my son the same thing.
That's not very nice. I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Fitzpatrick to approve. Mr. Randolph. Second by Mr. Randolph. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Mr. Willie? The motion to approve has passed.
Thank you. All right. Next item is a plan review, TR 17-12-002 USE use revised site and landscape plan for retail center. Corridor is a Highway 21 planned corridor overlay. Zoning is HC2, Highway Commercial District. Use size is 48,000 square feet. Petitioner is JSB Highway 21 Lots LLC, John S. Bowers III. Owner is JSB Highway 21 Lots LLC, John S. Bowers III. Parcel located on the east side of LA 21, south of Azalea Drive, Ward 1, District 1. Staff?
Staff has reviewed the revised plan and has numerous comments and a list of outstanding items to be completed. Staff is in favor of the proposed plan. However, it should be contingent to the outstanding items and items listed below. Number one is to confirm the parking calculation, making sure that the civil plans are updated and match with the landscape plan, provide the approval for the driveway from the Department of Transportation, making sure that, or confirm that all the detention is being accounted for, and there's still a conflict between the existing trees to be preserved and the proposed utilities, so a revised plan will have to be provided. Considering that some of the existing trees have been damaged during construction, and staff would like to recommend certain actions to be taking place to preserve the remaining trees. Also, 6 variances are being requested, and staff is in favor of the variances requested. So at this time, we would like to recommend approval subject to all the items listed on the staff report.
Thank you. Is the petitioner here? Yes, sir. Please come forward and state your name for the record.
My name is John Bowers III. I live at 16497 Perdido Key Drive in Florida.
Okay, and you've seen the staff report?
Yes, sir. I've been in constant contact with the staff as well as my staff that's working on this project.
What are your comments regarding the staff recommendations?
We're in complete agreement. As Ms. Lambert outlined, most of the items that are listed here, 1 through 6, these are already back to the parish and is in their review process. Anybody that hasn't been through this needs to know that it doesn't move very fast, and so we've been working with the parish to accommodate and resolve all of the matters that are outstanding. So with respect to number 1, there is an error on the landscaping plan where the landscaping architect showed one size of the buildings that are going to be out there at 3,000, but it's actually 5,000. We've already modified that and sent that in. With respect to number 2, that has already been resolved and is in the process of being reviewed by the parish. Number 3, we are already in contact with DOTD and have provided Ms. Lambert's office copies of those documents that have been back and forth. With respect to number 4, we have already confirmed the dry detention pond is as is shown on the plans today. And we are working on, with respect to number 5, we have gone and hired an arborist as requested by the parish to make this process uniform and correct. That arborist has identified the areas that are deficient in the sense of trees that had been damaged. What we've agreed to do is go above and beyond the parish requirements, whereby we have agreed to ask for no credit on any trees that are already existing. We're actually going to put in more trees than currently required under the parish guidelines. So those are the issues. There's one slight issue that we haven't resolved yet. The staff has asked us to use hard fence around the existing trees. That's not a law or requirement today. We've proposed using the same fencing that is being used at Oshner right down the street by us, which is an orange flagged fence, which I think will more than accommodate someone being able to see that. This project has been ongoing for a while. This project has not gone well from our view at all as the developer. We've developed a lot of property in this parish. I have certainly done that as the leader of the organization. I take accountability that this has dragged on quite a bit. We did it in 2 phases. Looking back on it, that was not a good decision. We should have done all of this at one time, and this project would already be completed. We are operating under Mr. Fontenot's request that even though these are 2 separate parcels with 2 separate municipal addresses and taxes, we are treating it as one property, which is requiring extensive drainage requirements that we have to exceed. The residents have been very vocal about their concerns about some drainage that's abutting the property. First of all, this property is HC2. Everything we're doing is in full requirements of that. Anybody that's been through this process knows the parish just doesn't agree to a drainage plan. If anything, they thoroughly review it and make sure that we're in compliance with the laws, which I admire that very much. They've put us through the ringer on that as far as making sure we're in compliance and we're doing the things the way we're supposed to do them. All of the concerns that have been voiced publicly at the last hearing, these are all requirements of the parish. We've already met all those requirements.
Okay. And there's some, the variances that you're requesting, item 7.
Yes, sir. Every variance there, with the exception of the fencing that we're asking for some reasonability around, because buying normal fencing like you'd have in your yard would be about a $13,000 investment versus $1,500. I think that's a fairly reasonable request by us. But short of that, every variance that's been requested, we are in full compliance. Like, for instance, they do not want any more trees taken down in the rear of the property. We totally agree with that. The only trees that were ever taken down were ones that were damaged when they were putting in the utility lines, totally outside of our control. That was actually done by some of the utilities labor organizations. But yes, we're in agreement with those, or I'm in agreement with those as the developer.
Okay, so all items that were listed there, you're in agreement that you will comply with the staff's request?
Yes, with the exception of, the reasonability of the fence.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Well, before we turn it over to fellow commissioners to ask any questions, is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak for or against this? Okay, please come forward. Please state your name.
Deborah Abear. I live at 117 North Dogwood Drive in Covington. I am the treasurer of the Flowers Estate Civic Association. In last month's May 7th meeting, Commissioner Doherty asked Ms. Everett, who was here representing them, if we postpone, will the developer have all the items taken care of on that list? And he was referring to the staff recommendations from the May 7th meeting. Okay? Ms. Everett, paraphrasing, said yes. Commissioner Doherty then said, you have 30 days, rain or shine, to get this paperwork in order. If it comes back to us incomplete, I will make a motion to postpone indefinitely. And that's a 90-day turnaround. Well, I can cite, he said he did everything, but there's a lot of things that he did not do. One of them is the parking calculations and building uses, asked for a total number of required provided spaces for each commercial use. I did not see that on that plan that you submitted out on the agenda whatsoever. Item number 2, the parking design has various layout problems relating to the parking islands and drive aisles, etc. That was also not updated in this current plan that I saw, that we knew about. Item number 3, the information for a potential new driveway on from Highway 21 for Building 7, never saw any information on that whatsoever. Item number 4, installation of hard fencing, and you talked about that, around any trees. He wants credit for the health of the trees, the arborist. He said now he has, but it was not in the original report that I was reading, okay? Number 9, the 8-foot opaque screen at the rear of the property line that butts up against the people that live there, the homeowners. It is not a fence. It will not withstand a major thunderstorm. It's really waggly. Number 13, exterior lighting plan. That was on last month's request, and see none of that provided whatsoever on this plan in this thing. And some the following are some other issues I'd like to see addressed. In the June staff analysis report, there's a list of requested variances that you talked about. I want to highlight that their request to further encroach into the 30-foot rear buffer backing up to the North Dogwood homeowners is for utilities. The homeowners need the required protection, especially as a drive-through is planned in the back of there, in the rear of the building. Staff does not, Helen said, does not recommend further encroachment. I urge that it not only be denied, but they order to replant the 30-foot buffer, okay? Also, Becca, Flowers Estate Civic Association, also strongly opposes the staff recommendation number 7, item number 3, which is about a variance to pay to the St. Tammany Parish Tree Bank. This is unacceptable because he's asking to remove at least 109 Class A trees and only plant about 29 new trees. It also does not make the property more in keeping with the rest of the Highway 21 planned corridor overlay. Every other commercial project on Highway 21 has been built to parish code. We would like him to do the same thing and complete this project. In conclusion, since it's obvious that they did not do what they were supposed to be doing, will the board enforce their previous intentions from the May 7th meeting and postpone this project indefinitely? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak against this? Please state your name and address.
Yes, Leo Hemelt. I live in Flowers Estates, 86 North Dogwood Drive. I can only echo what Deborah just said. I think she nailed it. If you drive from the Interstate 12 to the hospital, you'll see 21, and you'll see it's great. The overlay that you guys put in place really worked, except when you come to this development, it's like, what happened here? And actually, part of it is even open. Not one landscaping at all, nothing, all right? I've been to the homeowners behind this development. They brought me back into their sheds and everything. Look all the water here, look all the water. I said, yeah, well, the results, there was water there. And I go, okay, all right, obviously he doesn't care that he's dumping all this stuff on you guys. Plus, I don't see a tree in sight. Now, that was a heavily forested area before. Is not there now, all right? And then there's a huge mound of dirt. It almost looks like somebody was building a pyramid or something, and you have these trees stuck in it, like 3 feet of mud around this tree, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm not an arborist, but I don't think that's gonna help this tree. It's not gonna work, okay? So we've been down this road so many times before with this developer, and the other developers who developed 21 have done a great job. It really is. That new gas station across the street, the sign and everything is low, just like the parish has required. Looks great. And all the trees in front, big giant trees, because they didn't cut them down. So I think he should deny this. I think he should stand firm and say, no, we've got regulations and ordinances here. You've got to comply with them. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak against? Yes, ma'am.
I'll have to fill out a card later. Yes, my name is Peggy Vallejo. I live at 86 North Dogwood. I'm Leo's wife. I also object to this getting variances and extensions of time. It's an unsightly area. I've never seen a construction site run so poorly and so sloppily and so carelessly of the neighbors and the overlay that's already been planned. You guys have done a great job in planning the parish of St. Tammany. We have ordinances for reasons. We have rules for reasons. And this guy, if he didn't have the money to finish the job properly, he should have never gotten into it. I know that he owns another piece of property down the road, and his tenants call him a name that I'm not going to repeat, but they're not happy with him because I went into one of the stores one day and I said, hey guys, what's wrong with the parking lot? I mean, it's filthy dirty, the grass is overgrown. What's going on here? And she said, it's the owner. He refuses to maintain the property. I urge you to please put the pressure on him to do what's right and to do what he needs to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak against? All right, we'll go to rebuttal.
Well, first of all, I can see I have a lot of friends in my neighborhood. I actually own the largest home in Flowers Estates. I'm actually in the process of developing that now. Let me first of all say that what Miss Debbie stated, who, excuse me, I didn't know her name, excuse me, Miss Deborah stated, a lot of what she's stating is incorrect, and I think the staff has noted that clearly in the notes here. When Ms. Everett represented that everything would be done, everything is done that can be possibly done. For instance, the one thing that has not arguably been done is anything back from DOTD. Well, we can't control whether or not DOTD responds within 7 days. In order to meet the deadline for this hearing, we had to have everything into Ms. Lambert well within 10 days prior to this hearing today. So the second thing, they're both stating about how great Highway 21 is. I appreciate the compliment. I own Pelican Landing on Highway 21, and I do agree my development is quite nice. It's one of the largest on the planned corridor. I have not asked anyone today or anything in these documents to be treated any differently than anybody else. The comment about the landscaping has to do with Phase 1. Phase 1's long old news. It was approved, it's been built, we have an occupational permit. We did pledge, and Ms. Lambert can attest, we have over well in excess of $35,000 that we issued to the parish already for the landscaping that we plan to do on Phase 1. It is impossible to do the landscaping on Phase 1 until we do Phase 2. It all flows together. It would be putting trees in to only pull trees out. With respect to her comment about the tree bank, that came as news to me as well. I had never heard of that. That was the staff's recommendation on how to remediate the current problem out there, and we just simply agreed to it. We've agreed to everything that the staff has asked us to do, with the exception of the hard fence versus the orange plastic fence. That's the only difference. I'm not asking for anything different. They're completely wrong in their statements about me today and their statements about this project. They're completely wrong. And I want to emphasize that whatever tenant Deborah is stating that she spoke to, I'd love her and I and that tenant to have a meeting, because I can tell you that every tenant in that center openly appreciates all the things that we've done to make that center world-class. So I find that very hard to believe. Is there any other questions about the development that I can answer at this point?
Thank you. Not right now. The folks that are speaking against, do you want to rebut anything?
I'd just like to say.
Now come up to the mic.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm Deborah, and I didn't say anything about a tenant. I was talking something about him. Okay, it wasn't me.
Thank you.
All you have to do is drive by and look and go, holy cow, I can't believe this is getting through this parish. All right, and that's the main thing. Now, when we were trying to get a public records request, we noticed there may be some issue about cutting down the trees, and the DA's office said, well, if it's active or something, so they can't give us the file on that. It hasn't been this clear, the way he's described it. It's been a problem since day one on this particular case, and I think the only way you're going to get his attention is if you say no. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Come back up, and I'll let you have a couple of minutes to.
Nobody wants to finish that project more than me. Everything that he has stated today about his problems with it, by denying it, we're going to only have those same eyesores for longer. If this gets approved, I think it's well known in the parish that I want to move expeditiously in completing this project. I've openly, in the public forum today, have admitted that this project has gone poorly. I have not stated anything to the contrary. I'm trying to complete the project. The mound of mud that he references, I would love to have moved that mud 90 days ago. But as staff will tell you, I am not allowed by law to move that mud until we get these approvals. Everything these people are complaining about, I can't fix until I get the approval. So they can sit here and defamate my name all they like. I can do nothing further until this committee approves with the development, and we are in full compliance with the law. Anyone that's been through this process knows Ms. Lambert, Mr. Fontenot and the rest of the folks at the parish are giving nobody a free deal. We're going to have to do everything to the letter of the law, which we have done and we will continue to do.
Thank you. All right. We've gone through rebuttal, and we'll bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Lauren.
Thank you. Mr. Bowers, just as information, I went back, all of our meetings are taped. They're all available on the internet. And I went back and I've looked at the hearings that we've had leading up till tonight. We had one mid last year before this work started. They call me the saint of Highway 21, the bulldog, okay? I know you. All right? We take great pride in the fact that if there's one place that we don't want to turn into Veterans Highway, it's Highway 21. We've seen Sterling Properties develop River Chase. We've seen the Weiner family and the other contractors develop Nordalac. The Winn-Dixie's been built. All the shopping centers have been built. And I can tell you in the 22 years that I've been involved in this, I've never seen one site that's as unsightly as that site. And if you look at the documents that we've got tonight, well, let me mention this first. Last year when the gentleman, I can't remember his name, but he was on the video, when he came up and he was talking about what he proposed to do, I purposely asked him, as I do all the people that's coming in with development on 21, are you aware that there's a planned corridor overlay and the requirements are more stringent than they are on 1085 or 1077 or any of the other highways? He said, oh, I'm definitely aware of that, and are we going to follow the rules to the law? Okay? Last month, when it was obviously the rules weren't being followed, the young lady came up and represented you firm. And when the question was asked by not just me, but there were 2 or 3 of the commissioners that asked her, are you aware of the planned corridor overlay, and can you do what you say you're going to do in 30 days, or do we need to give you longer? And she said, oh, we'll get it done. We'll get it done. And don't take my word for it. Go back and look it up it's available for anybody on the internet, and see what your employees have committed to this commission to do. Now take that in mind, and let's look with me for just a minute at number 6 on the list. A large portion of the required buffer trees and live oaks on the site have been damaged or removed during construction. Trees were taken down that weren't supposed to be taken down. Okay? And yet, you look out there and I drove through your parking lot today, and there's places in the parking lot when you drive from one section to the next section, it's concrete to this point and concrete to this point, and then there's planks laid in the ground. It's the most ungodly, unsightly thing that I've seen on 21 in 21 years. I can understand these people being concerned. Okay? It's not what we expect on 21. Okay? Now, I'm not trying to be somebody here to lecture to you, but what I'm saying is, if your employees have committed to us in the past that they were going to follow the rules, now we're saying, well, if you just give me the permission, I'll follow the rules this time. why should we believe that? Okay?
I'd like to just make a couple responses back to you. Number one, neither representative to date has been an employee of mine, so I first want to clarify that. The first gentleman that you're referencing is the engineering firm that we hired to do the work. That, I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, but I would say no, because we're not employing them as a W-2. But yes, they were hired, and Mr. Lauren, I agree with you, sir, that they.
You sent him up here to represent you now.
I agree with that, sir, and I agree that we hired him in his professional capacity to do the job, and obviously, the results are not indicative of what we expected. I can simply tell you that that's a sidebar civil matter that will be handled. I do not want to be embarrassed anymore than you lecturing me today about Highway 21, when I absolutely know the requirements on 21. As I stated, I have a beautiful center. I remember meeting you 15 years ago when I was building it, and I did every single thing you asked me to do. I remember that, and I did what I said I was going to do, and I'm trying to do that today. However, by the mistake that was made was doing this project in 2 steps. Had we done it in 1 step, there'd be no big mound of mud. The planks you reference are because, believe it or not, the way that out parcel 1 was cut out for phase 1, it's exactly that diagram you're talking about. So those planks were put in because it was filling up with water, and it was actually a deterrent for people to go in and out of the existing businesses. There is no question about it. Doing it in the 2 steps the way it was done was an absolute mistake. There's nothing I can do to go back in time and fix that. As far as the requirements of a planned overlay, there is no doubt that is going to be required in order to get a building permit. So there's no way that I can cheat the system or do anything that you would be concerned about me doing or implying that I would do. These folks don't issue building permits without every single thing done. And when I say everything, make no mistake, everything. So your concerns about how do you trust me, trust in your own administration, sir. They've held me to the letter of the law. They'll continue to do so. I'm trying to clean that mess up that you referenced. But it's either allow me to do it now. If you want to delay it another 90 days, the only thing you're doing is letting it sit out there for another 90 days to look the same way it does. If that's what you want to do, listen, Mr. Lauren, I've had 4 buildings out there that are on the ground. You may have seen them. They're the big red metal buildings. I have $2 million of my own money sitting on the ground. You don't think I want to finish this project?
I hear what you're saying. You've got a mess. And the question is, how do we get from this mess to get it corrected?
I do not disagree with you that the site today does not meet my satisfactions, and obviously not yours or the folks in the room. I am handcuffed to do anything more because phase 1 is completed. We have certificates of occupancy. Those businesses are open. The rest of the eyesore, let's call it, I can do nothing further at this time without a building permit. And in order to get a building permit, I have to go through the process where I am today in front of your committee. Upon satisfaction of your committee and agreeing, then we can move to filing with the parish to get a building permit. But I want to be very open with you because you're questioning the integrity of me and my organization in completing this. And let me say this, I cannot walk into St. Tammany Parish tomorrow and just pull a building permit. There's a process, it takes time, staff has to review it, they take anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks to give you comments, you have to respond to those. This is a process, it's certainly a marathon, okay? I can commit to you today that I am personally engaged, I want to get the project completed, my reputation is on the line, I understand the look and the feel of the place, I pass by it every day. I see it, if I'm in the country, I see it. Make no mistake, I want to fix it just as bad as you want me to do it. I'd argue a little more.
Well, let me bring the point home a little bit more on like number 7. I can remember distinctly when they were trying to get the permits, get the approvals for River Chase. They came in and they had an attorney, and he made the point that they were going to meet all the requirements of the planned core overlay. And we asked him one simple question: are you going to meet them without the variances? Because what, if you've got 15 rules and you say, well, I want a variance on 12 of them, you're not meeting the rules, okay? I'm like these folks. I have a real problem with the variances. I don't have a problem with the variance on the sign. I don't have a problem with that one, because if you'd had that before the people damaged the trees, we probably wouldn't have that problem. I really think that there should be some method, and we can vote one way or the other tonight, and I'm sure you can appeal it and do whatever you want. They can appeal it. But there should be more dialogue between you and those residents that are around it, because they live with it in their backyard every day.
We have a wooden fence back there. The councilman notified me of concerns about the quality of the fence that Deborah mentioned. I've had that looked into. They've added additional sheeting in the front of it because some of that property back there is wet from when it's been there since we bought it from the previous owner. So I think, as you can see, we're at odds as far as the neighbors and I. I don't quite understand why. I can understand from the view. I'm not making light of that. That I get. But I own property in Flowers Estates too. So not only do I own this property, but I own the property back there. My intention is certainly to have the values go up, not down. So I'm in the same boat as them. I'm in both boats. But I'm attesting to you today, there's nothing further that can be done at that site until this gets through. So if it gets delayed again, those neighbors are going to keep living with it. Instead, I've come here today. I've admitted responsibility. I've taken your public reaming as well as I've known to take it. I've committed to you that I'm going to do the right thing, but you don't have to trust in me. St. Tammany Parish has a wonderful planning department that does an excellent job of administering your rules. Believe me, I will tell you they are really good at it.
Well, we work with them every day too.
I work with them every day too, and I think I drive them nuts on this particular project where I keep saying, can I get the comments? Can we get the comments? We'd like to move forward with this project. I'd be happy to provide you a copy of those emails if you would like me to justify my word to you, sir.
Is there anything that can be done to clean up the work site?
As soon as we get permission with the process from the parish and the parish doesn't have any type of hold on the job, I have committed to begin cleaning up the job site as quickly as we can clean it up.
Well,
but I can do nothing else until that. I think that's the part that's missing. If we could go out there and pull that mud out of there and start putting those buildings up and throw in those beautiful trees, we'd have done it a long time ago.
Well, it's not just the mud. There's equipment and junk laying all over the place.
Well, it's construction equipment. I mean, most of what you're referencing.
It's all kind of building materials and stuff just stacked all over the damn place. It's terrible looking.
Yeah, it's $2 million terrible. I agree with you. I'd like to put it in the sky.
Okay.
Trust me.
Okay, and I'm not trying to ream you. I'm just saying.
You did an excellent job, sir.
Well, we listened to the first representative that came up to represent.
Yes, sir.
And
I've stated where we stand with that gentleman.
You know, and we accepted what he had to say.
As did I, sir.
And it didn't happen.
I've paid him $82,000, sir, to get where I am today.
Okay. All right.
$82,000 for you to publicly ream me. Absolutely. It's an expensive price tag.
I apologize if I'm
a big boy, sir. I understand.
Too hard about it, but all of us have worked, and I'm boring these guys to death, but we've worked too damn hard to keep the standards on 21 high.
Mr. Lauren, I'll remind you when we were building that center on Highway 21, you made an agreement with me and another developer about the signs. I don't know if you remember this. It was 15 years ago.
Which one?
You wanted the signs to all be black and white. You wanted them uniform signs.
Yeah.
I will attest to you today that I'm the only developer that's still on 21 that has kept that agreement with Flowers Estates, as well as the AOA. I'll go back many, many years ago on you.
When?
I have a pretty good memory, too. I've done the things I said I was going to do. I've met you before. You've given me these same requirements. I executed to them. I'm simply asking you to allow me to move my project forward so we can get rid of that eyesore.
Okay. We've both made our point.
What's that?
We both said our piece. Again, if I've been offensive, I apologize. It's not
I'm a big boy, sir.
personal.
I
It's
understand.
not personal.
It is personal to me. I will tell you,
Well-
it's got my name on it. It's my money out there. I want to get the project completed, but it's this type of, process that has to happen. As you very well know, the process on 21 is not turn in a building plan and you get a building permit. I think there are people that think that, but that's not just how it works.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd like to address
ma'am.
two particular points here. If I'm not mistaken, Mr. Bowers is requesting a variance, basically not to have to install the hard fencing around any of the existing trees. So the commission will have to vote if they decide to require it or not. Also, I want to point out variance number 5, where, no more encroachment should be done with utilities within that buffer. And I just want to make sure that it's pointed out and, that's, Mr. Bowers is aware of that variance and that staff is not in favor of it.
So with respect to number 2, we are willing to put the fencing around it. We're simply asking for the same treatment as Ochsner Hospital, just the orange large fence. What's being requested here, to my understanding, is actually like what you would see out in somebody's yard, like a 4-foot or 6-foot chain link fence, which is quite costly and only adds to the lack of beauty out there on the shopping center. To me, it's going to look more like a jail cell with a bunch of chain link fences around the trees. That's what I know about that. I have no issue with putting in the same orange fencing that anyone that has visual capability would be able to see, and will keep those trees from being knocked down. With respect to the point, the final point that Ms. Lambert makes, I have walked the property personally with the construction company as well as the subcontractors that have the requirement to put in the plumbing and the utilities in the rear. There's ample room, I have been assured, with what is there today, and that there would be no need to move any additional trees to meet the requirement of running the the utilities in the rear of the property.
And we just want to make sure here, when we talk about hard fencing, we want to make sure that the information is clear, is that the fence stays up. And you may have passed in front of the Ochsner development. If you've looked at it, some of the orange fence is falling down.
I haven't seen it.
Basically, and we're not pointing out the finger here, is that most of the time, that type of fencing it just falls down because it's not being held up by any type of support so that every time it just rains or there's a lot of wind. And that's what we're asking here, is that if you want to go with the orange fencing, then it needs to have some poles to hold it up. So, it's not every day or every other day that it's just taken down by, the wind or the rain.
I understand your concern. I have no problem agreeing publicly that when we put that orange fencing in, if there's a problem with it, I think most of your folks in enforcement know how to get a hold of me if there's a problem based on the amount of property we own. We'd fix any problem immediately.
The reason why this comment is there is because enforcement cannot go on a site every day, and it's important to protect the trees. So if you want to use the orange fencing, then there has to be some sort of additional support to be able to keep it up.
I would provide you pictures of it when we put it up, and if you do not feel it meets your expectations, you can provide additional commentary on what you'd like to see us do, and as long as it's reasonable, I think I would be willing to do that.
It's just the commission will have to vote on your request.
Understood.
Thank you. Mr. Lauren, you have any other comments? Ms.
probably no comments tonight.
Ms. Casavant.
I feel these variances are, I guess I concur with staff at this point, that if we do what the staff is asking them to do with the hard fencing, the fence in the back next to the neighborhood be reinforced or better than it is there. I'd like the drainage checked also to see if from this project is water going, onto the property owners from this development. I'm not really in favor of some of these variances, just for the fact I think I would feel more comfortable knowing that we had a hard buffer around the remaining trees that are not damaged. I had a question, were the utilities in on the back part, that when you said no additional trees be removed? Helen, they have to go in and do the utilities for the building, is what you're saying? Or,
No, basically what we're saying is that there shouldn't be any
utilities in that
utilities.
area?
Yeah, there shouldn't be, the variance to encroach into the south buffer, it has happened in a portion of the property. So it's there, it's existing, we have to live with what's existing, but no more
No more,
encroachment. So
okay.
basically what's done is done,
Right.
but we are asking that it just has to be relocated.
I just don't agree with what he's asking for the variances and stuff. I do agree that we have to make some kind of decision so that we can see some progress begin back on this site, since we're being told that unless we approve this, he can't move forward with that mound of dirt. And so I just don't agree with giving him some of these variances. I'll hear
I just
anybody else
wanna-
that has. Yes.
I just want to, make sure that the commission understands that some of those variances, some of the trees have already been removed. Some of the live oak trees that are requested to be removed are in the parking lot area. Also, we suggest to pay into the mitigation bank. Also, the variance to remove some trees into the Highway 21 corridor in place of the detention pond. Well, the detention pond is part of the requirement to meet the drainage requirements. And basically, that's one of the reasons why they're requesting a variance. So we're trying to comply with what is left here.
So, in other words, in order to finish this, he's messed up in the beginning, so now we're gonna have to change our, give him whatever to get this finished. But I also have a question on the size of buildings when you're talking about parking spaces. I've noticed in phase one, there's not enough parking spaces, it seems like, for the buildings. Would it be possible, are they planning on phase two to have more parking spaces for phase one? Since they didn't do it all together in total amount.
And Mr. Bowers can correct me if I'm wrong, but, this is gonna be an open parking lot. They will have to meet the minimum number of parking spaces. As of right now, they have some parking spaces to meet the requirements of the two businesses that are open. And as, they request to have more businesses open, we will keep account and make sure that it meets the requirements.
Well, it's kind of like I see it's a nail salon, so the number of cars for every how many seats are in there, is that how you go about it? And the restaurant, the number of tables and seats?
In regards
And
to
that?
the restaurant, it's based on the number of seats and the number of employees. As to the nail salon, it's just one space per 350 square feet.
And they
It's-
met that requirement in order to open?
Yes.
The size of the building, has that changed? What the size building that, you said something about, they had to give you the, where was it, the building?
Yeah, this is, the plan that was provided to us is based on the anticipated tenants. So we just want this to be confirmed to make sure that, the tenants that are coming in, and we will keep track of that, obviously. We keep track of all the,
What goes in there?
of what goes in there and everywhere else in all the shopping centers. So as tenants starts coming in,
So does the parish have the right to say that tenant can't go in there because there's not enough parking places?
Absolutely.
Okay.
If you do not have enough parking spaces to meet the
They can't
requirements,
accommodate
then-
that business, okay.
I just wanted to clarify,
on that.
as
It's-
Ms. Lambert stated, the current phase one, as we call it, the two buildings, there's actually 5 spots it's 3 to 5 extra over what's required just right there, and that's what we had to have to get occupancy for the businesses in place. And Ms. Lambert is correct, we're gonna do cross-access. So if you look at our current plan, we have in excess of the amount of spots required. Quite a few, I think over 12.
Depending on what goes in. I have no further questions. I'll wait and see what the rest of my commissioners think about it.
Okay, so we've heard staff's comments, we've heard the developer's comment. So where do we go? And I'm gonna ask a question to staff. If this was approved with the variances and everything, and these folks come or call you and the developer's not doing what he said, what action can the parish take?
Or if they are in violation, we will have to get code enforcement involved. Or, we'll hold up the building permits or the occupancy of the building until all the requirements are met.
All right, thank you. All right, we've got a discussion item, and we need to do something. We need to either approve it or turn it down. Ma'am, we've already closed to the public right now. Commissioner Willie.
Helen, Mr. Bowers mentioned that he has to have this permit in order to continue his project. Is that true? Or he has to do something else before we need to give him approval?
Well, he will still have to provide the missing items according to what he's just stated. The plans have been submitted. I haven't seen the plans because they must have been submitted after those comments came out. But he will have to comply with everything that is listed here unless if the commission grants him any type of variances.
But what?
But the plans will have to be updated before we can issue another building permit.
Okay, so I'm saying if we don't give him approval tonight, what's his next step?
It's gonna be delayed another month until we review the plans that have been submitted. However, the list of variances is not gonna
change.
I doubt that it will change.
So we, okay, that's all.
Commissioner Randolph.
Helen, more specifically, we vote on this tonight. Things move forward, and we take the word of Mr. Bowers and his team to comply with everything that is necessary for the Highway 21 corridor overlay. If we don't vote on this, as I understand it, he then has to wait, or the project still has to wait until you guys review the plans that have already been submitted and then determine whether or not those items have been complied with.
If you're looking at items 1 to 5, after we review the plans, it is possible that some of those items may be removed if it meets the requirements, obviously. While number 6 will not be removed because this is what we're recommending, and the recommendation is not going to change. The list of variances and the recommendations from the staff is not going to change either. As far as the number 8, 9, and 10, that's not going to change either. The 8-foot opaque fence will have to remain. It will have to provide an exterior lighting plan, and they're responsible for the maintenance of the plant materials.
So the plans that are already in place, and you name the those things that will probably not change and those that may change. Mr. Willie asked is there nothing that can be done with that property right now, the way it looks? Is there nothing that the developer can do to straighten it out, to clean it up, to do something with the dirt? Is it that all of this have to be done before any beautification or aesthetics can be done to it?
Well, eventually, additional building permits will be issued, and more paving will take place, which will remove some of the equipment on the site. Without moving forward with any approval, and, we have to review the plans, obviously, but once the plans are in compliance, then we have to move forward with issuing building permits, and the site will be further developed.
Thank you.
Mr. Drum.
Okay, so I'm still as confused as I was before we started. You're saying that he can't do nothing until we give him permission to do it. Mr. Bowers is saying that he can't do anything until we allow him to work with these variances. Is that correct, sir?
Well, it's a yes and a no answer. In other words,
That's what I'm asking, yes or no?
okay, you have item 1 to 5 here where what has to be, he has to provide plans, to rectify or the information or provide the information that's being requested here. And then you have the variances that he's requesting. Some that we're recommending approval and some that we're recommending denial. So basically, the variances that we're recommending approval, if the commission is in favor of it, then they can support the variances and or not support the variance that we're not recommending approval of. Now, Mr. Bowers is requesting not to have to install hard fencing where the existing trees are to remain. So it is for you to decide if you want to grant him that variance or not.
So we have more than one vote to take here then? We have to grant each variance is what you're saying?
No, it's one vote, and then you can make the decisions as to will you grant his request.
Well, I look at it like this. We have an eyesore. Everybody says we have an eyesore. Mr. Bauer says he can't do anything to remove the eyesore until we give him permission to get the permit. We can't give him, or some people are thinking we can't give him the permit until he fixes something, which he can't do until we give him the permit. Okay, so what we're going to end up with is this gentleman might get upset and just say, okay, it's yours, there it is, that's your junkyard. Or we can say, give the man another try, let him go by his word on TV publicly, and let him fix what needs to be fixed with you keeping an eye on him. I make a motion that we grant this.
Sir, and would you please?
With variances.
No, sir, would you please address the request from Mr. Bowers? Will you allow him not to have to install the hard fencing under
Yes.
number 6?
Okay, that's going with the orange fencing.
Yes.
That's properly supported.
Right,
So
right
that-
now, right now, somebody's got to take a step somewhere, and we're not doing it unless somebody makes a motion, and that's my
Okay.
motion.
A motion by Mr. Commissioner Drum to allow, and on the fencing in lieu of the hard fencing, to allow the orange fencing that is properly supported. Am I stating that right?
Yes.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Drum. Mr. Willie,
Well, I was gonna second it, but I'm gonna have to require that hard fencing,
okay.
because I just think it's part of that corridor, and we're gonna stick to our toughness there.
Now, the hard fencing is just there, I'm gonna say temporarily is my understanding, is that,
It's a temporary fence.
okay? It's not a
How long is
permanent.
it supposed to stay up?
It has to stay up during construction.
And then it's replaced by another fencing, or?
No, it's eventually the site will be occupied, and then you will have everything in place where no more construction will be taking place, so the trees will be preserved.
Mr. Willie, I'd just like to make sure you understand what they're asking and what we're agreeing to do. There's existing trees we're trying to protect, right?
Yeah, and some of them are dead, right?
Some of them have got issues. Some of them,
Yeah.
the arborist actually says are good, and we're actually counting them as bad and giving you an additional tree. That's what I referenced earlier today. But I'm strongly against a chain link fence, because I can tell you right now, you're getting complaints about how it looks. If we go out there and chain link fence certain trees all over the place, it's gonna look like Angola. I want you to understand, when I get the phone calls on it, huh? Well, I appreciate that, but I just want you to understand that, because there's gonna be a lot more calls of, well, what's behind those fences? Why is that fence there? I just wanna go on the record that will cause more problems out there, but we'll do what you ask us to do.
There is,
Bug,
we're shooting the bull there right now,
turn.
but there is another alternative. St. Tammany Hospital right now has got a massive expansion going on at their hospital. Okay? It's not in the planned corridor overlay, but they have a massive expansion going on. They have a fence, and it's a hard fence. It looks like it's made with like 4x4s with plywood on the front of them. Okay?
I've not seen that.
All you gotta do is drive down.
The only difference I would say is this development is right on 21, as you know.
This is too?
Well, no, the expansion I saw was off of 21 on the back of the hospital.
Oh, this is, if you drive down the highway, you look across the parking lot, you're looking at it.
We have a motion by Commissioner Drum.
Not the hard ones.
Mr. Baggett. Second by Mr.
Second
Baggett. With the variance on the fencing.
Maybe, Mr. Chairman, we can rephrase at orange fencing that will remain up throughout construction.
Yeah, properly supported is the way I understood Commissioner Drum's motion, which says the same thing in my mind. You agree? All right, we've got a motion and a second. No further discussion. Please vote.
Mr. Richard? The motion to approve with the orange fence has passed. No, it's failed, I'm sorry.
Pardon?
Failed.
No. It passed. Yes,
Why is it
7 yeses and 2 noes. I don't know why we've got, it's showing failed, but
You need 8 for the waivers.
yes, this is true. This is true. You gotta have 8 for the variances, so the motion fails. Is there anyone wanting to make a different motion?
I make a motion to exactly like we had before.
Can you clear it so we can turn the microphone on?
Okay, pardon? Okay. We have a motion by Mr. Lorne that is exempting the orange fencing, and it must be hard fencing, and the rest of the items and variances are as listed. Is that correct? Okay. Mr. Baggett.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second on this with the hard fencing. Please vote.
Pardon?
Vote. Motion carries with the hard fencing. All right. That's the last item on our agenda. Is there any old business that needs to come before the commission? Any new business? Do I have a motion to adjourn? All right. Thank you all.